Marvel, Fishing in the Skies. Starting with the Ghost Swordsman Legacy. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176. Then Kinlaw noticed that only the heads of Old Carter and Johnny were left in the black swamp and they were in a coma. Brashu, do you have to give me an explanation for this matter? Kinlaw narrowed his eyes and looked at Brashu, who was emitting terrifying power in the sky, with a chill on his body. Explanation? Haha. I don't know what explanation means. You were lucky. If it weren't for the traitor Kazan, you would be dead now. Brashu simply broke the jaw and roared at Kinlaw and Kazan. In this case, then you should calm down, Kinlaw said, and his figure flashed and appeared in front of Brashu in an instant. The scarlet ghost hand directly pierced Brashu's head. In an instant, countless chains condensed from the ghost hand and tied Brashu tightly. The next second, Brashu's body began to twist and deform, and soon turned into a black shadow and merged into Kinlaw's ghost hand. At this time, a figure Kinlaw was familiar with fell out of the shadows. Who else could it be but Ancient One? Chapter 308. Waiting for Death. Ghosts arrive. Style. Kinlaw couldn't help but be shocked when he saw Ancient One. Just now, I was wondering where Ancient One was. Who would have thought that she would fall out of Brashu's stomach? With a flash, Kinlaw came to Ancient One in an instant. At this time, Ancient One was pale, with a dark aura all over his body, and the colorful mark on his forehead flickered. https://w.v''s.het/ Fortunately, there was no big problem with the person, and the key parts of the soul and body were all protected by the secret magic. The invasion was basically on the surface, and the actual damage was almost negligible. Kinlaw covered the top of Ancient One's head with his ghost hand, not to mention that the white salted egg feels very good. There is not even a hair stubble. With a thought, the dark aura that constantly eroded Ancient One's body was taken back into the ghost hand. At the same time, the blood and chi flow was activated, and the pure vitality was integrated into the body of Guyi, helping her to completely remove the injuries in her body. Soon, Guyi's face returned to its rosy state, and her tightly closed eyes slowly opened, revealing those eyes like stars. Master Guyi, why were you swallowed by that guy? How do you feel? Are you affected by him? Kinlaw asked hurriedly when he saw this. I'm fine. The darkness will not erode my soul. Guyi shook his head and said earnestly, Kinlaw, I think it's better to seal up those terrible existences when you break through in the future. Fortunately, this is hell. Even if there is any chaos, it will not cause much impact. Otherwise, I don't need to say more, right? Kinlaw heard this and smiled bitterly, but still nodded in agreement. Guyi was right, he really can't be so wasteful in the future. At the beginning, Jiger must have been too conceited and didn't pay attention to the eastern line of the ghosts and gods. As a result, when he fought with the enemy with all his strength, he revealed a flaw, allowing those ghosts and gods to take advantage of the opportunity and kill him in the underworld. If it weren't for the presence of Ancient One and Johnny, it is estimated that Brashu would have succeeded, Kinlaw said as he looked at Johnny and Old Carter, who were lying on the ground and restored to their human form. Through his mind's observation, there was nothing wrong with the two of them, but they consumed too much power, so they fell into a coma. Kinlaw flicked his finger. A ball of underworld flame and a ball of fluctuating fire accurately hit the two people's eyebrows. In an instant, the two people returned to their transformed state again. The flame began to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye, but it will take a little time to wake up. After all, the exhaustion of power is not like an Android phone, which can be turned on by charging. Kinlaw noticed the Holy Spirit flame on Johnny's body, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Good guy, did Johnny awaken the sleeping angel of the Spirit of Vengeance? Master Ancient One, Johnny, when did this happen? Kinlaw looked at Ancient One with some curiosity and asked. Just after you entered the blood pool, Mephisto. Ancient One explained to Kinlaw what happened, including her battle with Breu. When Kinlaw heard Ancient One say that the Time Stone couldn't do anything to Breu, He was shocked and angry. He gnashed his teeth in hatred. Bro, he's really good at making trouble. After a long breath, Kinluo calmed down the anger in his heart, looked at Ancient One and said, Master Ancient One, please take Johnny and Old Carter back first. You're not leaving? Could it be? Ancient One frowned slightly when she heard this, but soon seemed to understand something. She said seriously, Kinluo, I know your power has improved again, but she is different from the Devourer of Planets. Her power is extremely overbearing. It is not a wise move for you to fight alone. Some things will always be problems if they are not solved. Just as you said before, you don't want the battlefield to be opened in the human world, right? If death finds the human world, it will be really troublesome. Kinluo looked at Ancient One and said seriously, okay, then I'll send them back first, and then come to help you, Ancient One said, without giving Kinluo a chance to object at all. With a flash of his figure, he appeared beside Johnny and Old Carter, grabbed them and was about to leave. Wait, Kinluo hurriedly called out to Ancient One at this time. Kinluo, I have already made up my mind about this matter, no need to say more. Say P, give me the flowing star meteorite knife. The matter of hell is over, and it's time to return it to its original owner. Kinluo interrupted Guyi before he finished speaking. Guyi, holding back all his passionate words, twitched his eyes, grabbed the flowing star meteorite knife in Johnny's hand and threw it towards Kinluo. Then he opened the spark portal and disappeared on the spot. Kinluo took the flowing star meteorite knife, felt the soul power stored in it, and his heart was shocked. Good guy, Johnny is really powerful, and the number of demons he killed is twice that of Old Carter. It's simply better than the master. It's said that the reason why Johnny was able to kill so many demons is mostly thanks to the characteristics of the flowing star meteorite knife. The meteorites he summoned were not intercepted by Guyi, so it is reasonable that he defeated Old Carter. Kinluo mobilized the soul power in the flowing star meteor knife. He unceremoniously absorbed all the soul power stored in it. Death will come at any time. Now with more power, it will be easier to deal with her. In an instant, Kinluo's ghost power began to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye. The ghost sword shadow array that could barely be used began to be mastered quickly. At the same time, he advanced to a deeper level of ghost descent. Let the ghost Brad descend on himself and release powerful sword energy. The sword energy explodes after hitting the enemy and causes a lot of damage. At this speed, it may not take long for Kinluo to completely master its power. But with these powers, it is still a long way to reach the level of summoning Jiger. But Kinluo is not in a hurry. Don't forget that there are still Brashuang, those ghosts who are watching the fun. You can get some oil and water from them. At that time, even if you can't break through, it must be not much different. Similarly, with the improvement of soul power, Kinluo's Sword Soul and Azurus series have improved slightly. Especially for the Azurus system, Kinluo had already mastered part of the power of the Thunder God's Breath in advance. Now the Thunder God's Breath has reached nearly 95%. To completely break through, just a little help is enough. As the power of the Streamer Star Meteorite Knife was swallowed up, Kinluo's power of the Devil May Cry system was increased again. As he expected, the Ghost Advent was completely mastered. The mark belonging to Brad also really shone. Chapter 309 Recalling Ghosts and Gods, Handing Over Souls. Just as Kinluo was digesting the power of the soul, the spark portal opened and Guyi walked out of it. Looking at the appearance inside the spark portal, it seemed to be the scene of the hero apartment. Oh, you're back. The power of space is convenient. Are they awake? Kinluo looked at Guyi and asked. No, I sent them back to the apartment and handed them over to Osborne and his son. It will probably take another 2 or 3 hours for them to wake up completely. Guyi shook his head and said. Chapter 177, Kazan suddenly moved. The blood and energy around him expanded as if it was free. The blood and energy soon condensed into a vortex around him that was as solid as a substance. As the vortex grew larger, the entire world was affected. Black traces began to spread in the sky and the ground. Seeing this scene, Kinlawo couldn't help but feel a little shocked. Good guy. This is obviously the rhythm of releasing a big move, and looking at the appearance of this big move, it is very likely to be a second awakening skill. Blood Demon, killing the sky. This move is not easy to resist. The power is extremely terrifying, and it was performed by Kazan. Kinlawo knew he couldn't wait any longer, and he had to strike first. If Kazan really released this move completely, the loser of this battle is likely to be him. Failure to break through is not a joke. It will really kill people. Kinlawo gritted his teeth and simply integrated all the blood and energy in his body into the demon prison blood kill. A first awakening skill versus a second awakening skill. Even if he was unsure, he had to shoot the arrow on the string. With the integration of blood and energy, the demon prison blood killer behind Kinlawo almost instantly reached its complete form. It was even a little overloaded, and the huge blood sword was surrounded by scarlet blood light. The feeling of being about to burst out kept coming from the blood sword. Chapter 307 Blood Demon Middle. Killing the Sky Defeat. Emperor Blood killing the sky. Kinlawo grabbed the giant sword behind him with both hands. He jumped up and rushed towards Kazan at a very fast speed. At this time, the blood-colored vortex around Kazan had almost condensed to the limit. The blood-colored aura all over his body exuded a terrifying power. Boy, don't get my power again in the next life. You can't control it. Kazan's grim voice sounded. Rumble. The blood and energy exploded. Then the whole person turned into a ball of terrifying blood energy and rushed into the air. The appearance of a real blood demon appeared above the blood, looking like a big dog covered with blood-colored vortices. He pounced on Kinlawo, who was close to Sue, and the demon blood meteorite was also swept into the mouth of the blood demon, and its power increased again. Kinlawo did not expect that the two powerful skills of demon blood meteorite and blood demon killing heaven could be used in combination, but now he could not care about that. Go to hell. Kinlawo roared, grabbed the demon prison blood killing that was about to explode and slapped it hard. The huge sword blade slashed fiercely on the blood demon, and the world seemed to stagnate in an instant. The violent blood energy continued to float around. Kinlawo gritted his teeth. He stood firm and did not retreat a single step. Even though the blood vessels on his arms had begun to burst, his whole body was stained with blood, and he almost turned into a blood man. With the continuous impact of the two forces, the blood world also began to shatter. This time it was not a little bit, but it began to collapse completely. However, just when Kinlawo almost reached his limit, he suddenly felt that Kazan, who had transformed into a blood demon, seemed to have some problems with his strength. He felt a little exhausted due to overexertion. Kinlawo's eyes flashed. He seized this opportunity and mobilized all his strength. He slammed Kazan to the ground. Boom. The moment the demon prison blood killer landed, violent power poured out. It madly tore the blood power around Kazan. At this time, Kazan also completely exploded the power of the blood demon killer. However, this time the target was no longer Kinlawo, but the terrifying power erupted by the demon prison blood killer. The violent blood vortex collided with the sky-high blood column. The terrifying power completely tore the blood world apart. Kinlawo and Kazan both fell into darkness. However, the collision between the demon prison blood killer and the blood demon killer was still not over. The violent power of the two hit each other. The blood-colored light even felt like it was going to tear the surrounding darkness apart. Suddenly, the power of the blood demon killer trembled, as if something had gone wrong. Then the blood-colored energy began to spread. Kazan's slightly illusory figure appeared in the blood column of the demon prison blood killer. Kinlawo only then reacted, thinking that Kazan's awakening release must have failed. The power he had left was not enough to completely release the blood demon killer. As a result, he forcibly released such a terrifying power. Naturally, he would become weak halfway. Kazan, thank you for your gift. Go with peace of mind. Kinlawo roared excitedly, and then directly detonated the power of the demon prison blood killer, not giving Kazan any chance. Rumble. The blood column that soared into the sky exploded, and the violent power did not even give Kazan a chance to speak, and tore it apart completely. That is, at the moment when Kazan was torn apart, Kinlawo felt a majestic blood force merging into his body. This blood force is different from the liquid blood. If the blood force condensed by Kinlawo is water, then this blood is a paste. It's too rich. Kinluo absorbed this energy with all his strength. The blood power in his body was also affected. A qualitative change began to occur. At the same time, Kinluo also began to master new skills. Blood-sucking power, awakening passive skill. All skills will be accompanied by blood power. Killing the existence whose blood power is absorbed will gain all its vitality. Bloody rage. Consume vitality to produce a large-scale blood explosion with itself as the center point. The more vitality consumed, the stronger the power. The attacked enemy will suffer additional damage from the vitality. Demonic blood fall. As the blood power was completely absorbed, Kinluo also completely completed the breakthrough and reached the realm of Emperor Blood Killing Heaven, and mastered 3 new skills. Except for the last Blood Demon Killing Heaven, Kinluo has not touched it yet. He has mastered all the skills of the second awakening Emperor Blood Killing Heaven. Kinluo couldn't help but feel extremely surprised. Could it be the effect of this hell blood pool? That's why his blood power has been improved so much. You have to know that after Devil May Cry awakened for the second time, he only mastered 2 skills. One of them was mastered by Kinluo's power to trap the ghosts and gods. Otherwise, Kinluo could only master a passive skill. After digesting all the power, Kinluo slowly opened his eyes. Looking at the scene in front of him, Kinluo couldn't help but be stunned, and then his mind began to frantically warn. He felt a strong malice on Brashu. Not only him, but also several hidden places not far away. There was also considerable malice, but it was much worse than that on Brashu. hts://www.vts.net/ In contrast, Kazan, who was not far from him, raised the corners of his mouth and looked at Kinluo with a look of satisfaction. Chapter 178. Leave it to me, everyone. I'm still hungry now. Ganada stood up, patted his belly, and said confidently. The little spider looked at the piles of food packaging and wine bottles behind Ganada. His expression was a little wonderful. What a guy. She's still hungry? How much can this big sister eat? Inexplicably, the little spider believed Ganada's words. Hill and others looked at Ganada with disbelief and absurdity. Sir, the big mushroom has begun to approach here. Because it is a one-way command, I can't change the order. However, at this moment, Jarvis's voice suddenly sounded. In the blood pool, the Brashu clone, which has almost expanded into a huge meatball, is getting closer and closer to Kinluo. There is a mixed energy on his body. Dark energy, hell energy and all the messy energy are intertwined. It exudes a chilling breath. Wherever the Brashu clone goes, the space shatters. It can be seen how terrifying the power contained in this guy is. It would be fine if Kinluo was awake, but he was in the critical period of breakthrough and could not resist at all. When the clone of Brashu was less than 10 meters away from Kinluo, suddenly, a blood light fell from the sky, and the sword and axe chopped across. In an instant, the space was shattered, and the clone of Brashu stood still and could not move. A glimmer of light flashed in the eyes of the clone, and then it was filled with anger. Kazan, how dare you do bad things? Brashu's voice came out, and his tone was full of anger and resentment. Haha. Kazan sneered again, and the giant axe in his hand chopped fiercely. A blood light rushed into the sky. The next second, Brashu's clone dissipated on the spot, and there was no chance of self-destruction. After dealing with the clone, Kazan's figure flashed, and instantly broke through the blood ball and appeared behind Kinluo, and the sword fiercely inserted into Kinluo's back. Chapter 306. Confrontation between ghosts and gods. Kazan's release. The sword pierced Kinluo's chest, but strangely, no blood flowed out. Even the wound was invisible. The sword seemed to be projected. However, the blood around him underwent some strange changes. Wisps of crimson breath visible to the naked eye spread from the sword and merged into the blood around him. The color of the blood cells gradually changed from bright red to dark red. It looked like blood that had been oxidized for too long. Kazan, why are you doing bad things? Are you willing to be controlled by such a guy? However, at this moment, an angry voice resounded through the sky. Then the space shattered. Brashu's huge body appeared in the sky, emitting a dark purple breath, and it was obviously extremely angry. If you have the ability, come down and kill this kid. You are playing tricks. Brashu, I really look down on you," Kazan said with disdain on his face. Once these words came out, it was no less than adding fuel to the fire. "Kazan, you're looking for death." Brash felt like his lungs were about to explode. With a low roar, the dark purple aura on his body continued to spread, rendering the red sky dark purple. "If you have the ability, try to kill me." "I'm afraid you don't have this ability," Kazan said, and the blood-red aura around him rushed into the sky, instantly dispersing most of the dark purple aura. Above the sky, the power of one red and one purple continued to impact. It seems that no one can do anything to the other, but in fact only the two of them know. Now Kazan has the upper hand. There is no way, whether it is Johnny or Old Carter, or Ancient One, they are not so easy to deal with. Brash's trip to Hell not only did not gain any soul power, but also consumed a lot of his own power. In contrast, Kazan, who has been observing in secret, has not been idle. He has hunted a lot of souls and dark forces, and he is now almost in his prime. If Kazan hadn't inserted the sword into Kinlawo's chest, the momentum in the sky would have collided, and I'm afraid it would have been a one-sided situation. There are several secret places not far from the blood pool. Carlo and other 6 ghosts are hiding in them, watching the confrontation between Kazan and Brashu. Among these 8 ghosts, Kazan and Brashu are undoubtedly the first echelon. Brad belongs to the existence between the first echelon and the second echelon. Carlo and Luasha are the second echelon. Pullman, Kajia, and Saya are the existence of the third echelon. Of course, it's just a comparison between ghosts and gods. Even the existence of the third echelon is quite terrifying. Now the 2 big guys in the first echelon are confronting each other. They won't easily get involved, but they all have their own thoughts in their hearts. For example, Luasha, he has wanted to kill Kinlawo for a long time. Brashu's behavior is just too much to his taste. Now watching Kinlawo escape from danger, Luasha couldn't help but feel a little anxious. He wanted to help several times, but he still had some concerns in his heart. "What are you still hesitating about? Go ahead. If we get rid of the kid, we will be free. We have already dealt with Jig, so why should we be afraid of this little human?" TVB Novel Network. Pullman's eyes were full of fierceness, and his voice reached the ears of many ghosts and gods. "Haha, stop talking nonsense. Go ahead if you want to. There is one Jig in the underworld, which is enough. Do you want to make another Jig? The power that this kid has now is even stronger than the original Jig." Corilo sneered and said with a little sarcasm. Hearing the name Jig, which is almost a taboo, the faces of several ghosts and gods became a little ugly. Originally, they thought that it would be fine to pit Jig to death, but who would have thought that Jig would be so different and actually become a ghost directly? And it is a very powerful ghost, better than Kazan and Brashu. They have been retaliated by Jig a lot. If it were not for the underworld, they would almost be immortal. Now it is estimated that there will be 1 or 2 less ghosts and gods. Luasha was also extinguished by Carlo's words. He was definitely the one who was beaten the worst by Jiger. Now when he heard Jiger's name, he felt his heart tremble. In the blood world, Kinlawo was quickly absorbing the breath power released by Kazan. Soon, the demon prison blood killer behind Kinlawo was almost reaching perfection. Seeing this, Kazan's eyes flashed with a strange color. He stretched out his hand directly. The demon blood meteorite in the sky, which had just grown 3 or 4 times larger, began to smash towards Kinlawo. Kinlawo's heart could not help but move. His brows frowned slightly. What's the situation? This demon blood meteorite has obviously not reached its peak state. Why is it released like this? Isn't it a pure waste of power? If the demon blood meteorite is hanging in the sky, let alone other things, the problem of blood traction alone is enough to make Kinlawo very uncomfortable. But now watching the demon blood meteorite getting closer and closer, Kinlawo can't think about it anymore. Even if the power is not fully accumulated, this move is not so easy to resist. Just as he was gathering the blood and energy in his body and preparing to release the 2 skills of Rage Explosion and Blood Explosion to resist the demon blood meteorite. Chapter 179, the Brashu clone emitted billowing black smoke, and a noticeable knife mark appeared on his body. At the same time, the dark purple flames also burned on the fist that he had just used to attack Old Carter. But the next second, Johnny followed in old Carter's footsteps. His skull cracked and he flew backwards. Boom. However, at this moment, a red meteorite fell from the sky and hit the Brashu clone hard. Seeing this, a trace of irritation flashed in the eyes of the Brashu clone. He turned into a black shadow and rushed directly to the red meteorite. He punched directly. The meteorite with powerful power had not yet landed. TVB Novel Network. As a result, it was smashed to pieces by the Brashu clone's punch. Johnny, I will try my best to entangle him for a while, and then you use this magic weapon to chop more, and try to summon more meteorites to delay time. Don't let him disturb Kinlawo's breakthrough, old Carter said in a deep voice. Johnny didn't say anything when he heard it, but nodded seriously, holding the chain on the handle tightly, ready to start the windmill-style chopping. Do it. Seeing the Brashu clone fall to the ground, old Carter roared, and forced himself to stand up again and rush towards the Brashu clone. Johnny and old Carter kept pace with each other, and the fire in his eyes was extremely firm. The Brashu clone must not be allowed to get close to Kinlawo. Seeing Johnny and old Carter entangled, a trace of murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the Brashu clone. However, at this moment, the eyes of the Brashu clone changed slightly, as if it had received some order. The dark power that had been accumulated slammed into the bones on the ground. In an instant, countless dark powers spread over the bones and the ground. Old Carter and Johnny took off one after another, and with the help of the few forces they had, they barely avoided the invasion of this dark power. But soon the two felt a strong pulling force. The next second, the two fell to the ground in unison. The ground, which was originally covered with white bones, was now completely transformed into a black swamp. The two fell into the swamp and could not move. No matter how they struggled, they could not avoid the pulling force of the swamp. At the same time, a devouring force appeared in the swamp. It completely devoured the few powers in the two people. Only dark purple and blue flames flashed, and old Carter and Johnny directly lifted the transformation state of the Ghost Rider. They completely lost their resistance. After the Brashu clone turned the ground into a swamp, they did not delay anymore and rushed straight to the blood pool. Under the strong bombardment of the Brashu clone, the barrier of the Ancient One dissipated within a minute. The barrier of the blood pool itself had disappeared completely at this time. Not only the barrier, but also the blood pool was almost dry. Only a huge blood ball of dozens of meters in the center was left. Kinlawo was sitting cross-legged at the heart of the blood ball, absorbing the power of the blood balls around him. This huge blood ball is the core power of the blood pool. Originally, the entire core was hundreds of meters in size, and now only these are left to be devoured. Judging from the speed at which the blood ball is melting, Kinlawo can completely devour the blood pool in 3 or 2 minutes. Seeing this, the Brashu clone rushed over without saying a word. During the charge, the dark power and the power of hell quickly gathered, and the figure became more and more majestic. Obviously, he was preparing for a suicidal attack. Chapter 305 The Mushroom is coming. Kazan is backstabbed. That's what happened. We have to be prepared. Maypark gathered everyone together and told them about the upcoming mushroom eggs. Hearing this, except for Maypark and Ganata, everyone's face became extremely ugly. They all knew what the big mushroom meant. Not only the terrifying power when it exploded, but also the subsequent continuous pollution damage. At that time, let alone those innocent ordinary people, even most of these extraordinary beings will not be spared. Of course, Hulk is also an exception, and his eyes are full of confusion. To him, mushrooms and no mushrooms. He had no idea what was going on. Fuck. What the hell is S.H.I.E.L.D. doing? The battle has been won. Why are they still playing with big mushrooms? Did Nick Fury's head get stepped on by a donkey? Tony cursed directly, his face full of anger. Venom, are you sure you can stop the big mushroom? Through my memory, you should know what it is. TVB Novel Network. Spider-Man patted Venom, who had turned into a human form beside him, and asked in a low voice. Venom's mouth twitched when he heard it. He rolled his eyes at Spider-Man and said, "You really think highly of me? How sure are you? I can't stop the thing. You guys are not going to start a feast, are you?" "Oh, don't be angry. I just said that. I really can't think of any other way." Spider-Man saw this and quickly spoke to comfort him. "Mr. Tony, Things are not what you think. Director Nick Fury has tried his best to stop this, but this time it was an order from the upper council, so Director Nick Fury was also dismissed. Hill, who followed, hurriedly defended Nick Fury. Humphrey, who knows if it was Nick Fury, the black-boiled egg, who did it on purpose? Tony snorted coldly. He was really angry about this matter, especially for the attitude of those parliamentarians who did not take human life seriously. That is, Tony did not have the spirit of revenge, otherwise he would have been so angry that he would have transformed on the spot. Natasha and the captain looked at each other and saw some haze in each other's eyes. The captain took a step forward and hesitated whether to speak directly about Nick Fury, but Natasha pulled him back forcefully. She shook her head at the captain, signaling him not to make it public. If this matter is said now, it will not only fail to solve any problems, but may also cause internal strife. After all, the most important thing now is to deal with the problem of the big mushroom. Maypark noticed the two people's small movements, frowned slightly, and had a rough idea in his mind. I'm just telling you about this matter, don't worry. Kinluo had expected this matter a long time ago and has left a means to deal with the big mushroom. Before Hill could defend Nick Fury again, Maypark spoke first. It's worthy of being brother Kin. I was really scared to death. Otherwise, I really don't know what to do. Spider-Man patted his chest, and a relaxed expression appeared on his face. Venom was secretly relieved on the side. He was really afraid that Spider-Man would take him to intercept the big mushroom. That thing was too deadly for him. Other things are easy to say, mainly the flames produced by the explosion, which he can't bear. Even after swallowing the Chitauri, his fire resistance has been improved. But it can't withstand the torment of the big mushroom. HMPH. I don't need that guy to leave any tricks. I also have a way to deal with the big mushroom. Tony snorted coldly, then looked at May Parker and asked, May, what tricks did Kinluo leave behind? Seeing Tony's arrogance fail in less than a second, May Parker couldn't help but laugh in her heart. Just as she was about to say the sword mark left by Kinluo, she felt Hill's hot and hopeful eyes, and May Parker took the words back. Facing SHIELD, she decided to keep a hand. 2 insurances, let's say the one she thinks is the least reliable first. So May Parker pointed to Ganada, who was eating and drinking not far away, and said, Miss Ganada has a special power that can swallow big mushrooms. N. Everyone was a little confused when they heard it, and looked at Ganada in disbelief. It's hard to imagine that such a slender and beautiful girl can do such a crazy thing as swallowing a big mushroom. Don't joke like this on April Fool's Day. Are you serious? Even if she is a god. A mysterious girl. This is a bit too much. Tony saw that Ganada almost said the name of the daughter of God. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and made up for it immediately. Otherwise, if some interested people knew Ganada's true identity, the trouble would be endless. These troubles are not to be feared, but to be feared by thieves. Chapter 180. Bang! With a loud noise and flashes of fire, Mephisto was directly punched away by the fire giant. The flames attached to his body and thick black smoke came out. It looked like an old-fashioned locomotive. The fire giant wanted to attack again, but suddenly felt something strange behind him. He turned around and punched, but it was empty. Then his arm, which was swinging his fist, broke. The flying Mephisto appeared at the shoulder of the fire giant at some point, and his big mouth was constantly absorbing the broken hand of the fire giant. Seeing this scene, a trace of human anger flashed in the fire giant's eye-catching eyes. The broken arm quickly condensed into shape in the flames. Then he grabbed Mephisto's body with both hands. Mephisto is now completely a puppet, and he doesn't have much awareness of fighting. He just relies on instinct to fight, and he didn't expect that the fire giant's arm would recover so quickly, so he was caught without any resistance. Mephisto exudes a strong dark power all over his body, trying to break free from the shackles of the fire giant. However, at this moment, Mephisto's body suddenly froze, because a strange power enveloped him. The eyes of the flame giant turned into a vortex of flames, and a faint white light emanated from it. This was the power of judgment that was almost condensed into substance. Within Mephisto's soul, the soul belonging to Mephisto suddenly felt something was wrong. He wanted to escape, but he couldn't make any movements at all. He could only watch the power of judgment getting closer and closer to him. Damn it! Why is it me? Why is it me? Why? Ah! Mephistopheles screamed miserably. The power of judgment continued to rage on him. Scenes flashed before him. Those were the sins it had committed. In countless years, Mephisto didn't know how many sins he had committed. Even he couldn't count them. But the power of judgment turned out all of his sins one by one. Soon these countless sins burned. Mephistopheles also burned. In fact, Mephistopheles had already dissipated the moment the power of judgment descended. However, how could his will completely disappear if his sins were not completely burned? The fire of judgment began to spread from Mephistopheles' will. It wanted to burn his soul body together, but it was blocked by the power of Brash. Brash's power was too complicated. It not only included darkness, but also various powers. The fire of judgment was unable to do anything about these powers for a while. It was directly blocked in the deepest part of the soul. Mephisto didn't know how long he had been burning. When his will dissipated, he was still suffering from the pain of burning sins. Although in the world of souls, Mephisto had been burned for countless years. But in the outside world, only a moment had passed. When the power of judgment dissipated from Mephisto's soul body, Johnny and Old Carter stood up excitedly. Although they could not control the power of the fire giant, they knew very well what he had done. And they knew that Mephisto's will had been completely wiped out. In this world, there will never be Mephisto again. Johnny and Old Carter would be surprised if they were not excited after their revenge. Compared to Johnny, Old Carter's hatred is too deep. It can even be said that in the past few hundred years, his purpose of living is revenge. Now that his revenge has been avenged, in addition to the pleasure, Old Carter also has a strong feeling of emptiness and confusion. That feeling is very uncomfortable, and even makes him have an urge to end everything. Old Carter, Mephisto is dead. Why hasn't his soul body disappeared yet? However, at this moment, Johnny's voice suddenly came into Old Carter's ears. In an instant, the confusion and emptiness in Old Carter's heart completely dissipated. He looked at Johnny, and even thought of the name of Johnny's son in his heart. Johnny will be his motivation to live in the future. He wants to watch Johnny get married and have children. Watch Johnny's life. Chapter 304 The judgment was wrong. Breaking through the defense after the fire giant completed the judgment, it slowly dissipated. Finally, it turned into the appearance of the ultimate eye of judgment at the beginning. The eyes also separated and turned into the eye of judgment again, merging into the bodies of Johnny and Old Carter. The power of the eye of judgment returned, but it did not restore much of Johnny and Old Carter's strength. After all, they had just judged Mephisto, but they had used a lot of strength, almost draining them of their energy. The sins accumulated over countless years are not so easy to burn. If it weren't for the two of them working together to perform the ultimate judgment, with the power of one person, there is really no way to judge Mephisto. Old Carter. Seeing Old Carter's dumbfounded look, Johnny couldn't help but raise his voice a few points, which contained a sense of worry. He was really afraid that something would happen to Old Carter. After all, there were too many accidents in this combination skill. Ah, I'm fine. What did you ask just now? Old Carter came back to his senses and shook his head and asked. Johnny was relieved to see that Old Carter was fine, and then he said, I said, why hasn't this guy's soul been burned yet? Mephisto is obviously dead. Old Carter was also stunned when he heard this, and turned his head quickly, only to see that Mephisto was still standing there, with no intention of being burned and dissipated at all. An incredible look appeared on his face. Could it be that the evil god did it? But Mephisto is obviously dead. Before Old Carter finished speaking, Mephisto's soul suddenly moved. He seemed to have just woken up, and twisted his body twice. Turning back, he looked at Old Carter and Johnny with evil eyes. And there was no change from just now. How is it possible? Did the trial fail? Johnny held the streamer star meteorite knife tightly in his hand, and his white joints began to tremble slightly. Now he and Old Carter have almost exhausted their strength. It is difficult to fight again. How could this happen? How? I understand. Old Carter suddenly realized, and said in a heavy voice, damn it, we are only judging Mephisto. and the real controller of this soul body is the damn evil god under Kinluo. The soul body can now be said to be a pure clone of Breu. At this time, it seems that he understood what it old Carter said, and the evil smile on his face became even brighter. He flashed and turned into a black shadow, rushing towards the blood pool. Damn it, we must not let him succeed. Old Carter became anxious when he saw this, and he didn't care about the little strength left in his body. He rushed towards the clone of Brashu like a hungry tiger. Johnny followed closely behind. The two rushed towards the black shadow one after the other. Crack! With the sound of bones breaking, old Carter was directly knocked out by a punch, and fine cracks appeared on the skull. Johnny, who followed closely behind, attacked angrily, and the few flames of the Holy Spirit were wrapped around the streamer star meteoric knife, and chopped fiercely at the clone of Brashu. Swish! A harsh sound rang out, and the streamer star meteoric knife seemed to have dropped on a smoke bomb. Chapter 181. This move was named the Ultimate Judgment by old Carter and Johnny. The idea was very full, but the reality was very skinny. Old Carter and Johnny tried this move more than once, but all failed at the last step. There was no way, because the Hell Flame and the Hell Flame were too violent. As soon as the two came into contact, they were completely in a state of tit-for-tat. Not to mention fusion, even a touch was very strenuous, and there were even a few times that almost killed the two. And there was also a certain gap in the power level of the two. Although the needle tip and the wheat thorn were both very sharp, if they really touched, then the wheat thorn would definitely lose. However, it was different now. Johnny's hellfire was purified and turned into the Holy Spirit flame. In contrast, the Holy Spirit flame was not only more powerful than the Hell Flame, but also as soft as water. The two powers were neutralized, and it was much stronger than before. Old Carter and Johnny looked at each other at this time. They nodded to each other at the same time. Now success or failure depends on this. At this moment, something unexpected happened. The terrifying energy gathered by Mephisto did not seem to attack Johnny and old Carter. Instead, it opened its big mouth, as if it was going to swallow them. What's going on? Is Mephisto dead? He dared to swallow such a terrifying power. Is this guy going to self-destruct? But he is obviously in the upper hand. Johnny saw this scene and couldn't help but say in surprise, there must be something wrong with the abnormal situation. This guy is not right. Johnny, be alert, and complete the fusion quickly. Be sure to get rid of this damn guy, old Carter said in a deep voice, full of vigilance. Okay, let's start, Johnny said, and stretched out his hand directly. Old Carter did the same. The two white hand bones were facing each other. At this moment, the eyes of judgment at the center of the two people's eyebrows began to separate from the body and slowly compatible in midair. The faint blue flame surrounded the dark purple flame. Not long after, an eye with blue eye white and dark purple eyeball was suspended in midair. Boom! The moment the eye was formed, the world seemed to shake. This eye contained extremely terrifying power, which seemed to be even more powerful than the energy gathered by Mephisto. Not to mention that it contained a wonderful power of judgment. It's done, Johnny and old Carter said almost at the same time. Then the two of them collapsed on the ground at the same time. Releasing this move almost exhausted all their strength. Now just collapsing on the ground is already considered good. According to old Carter's original prediction, after this move, I'm afraid they will show their true form on the spot. At the same time, Mephisto has swallowed the dark power that has been compressed to the extreme into his stomach. In an instant, Mephisto's body swelled up directly. It looks like a huge human-shaped toad. Roar! Mephisto roared, and the terrifying dark power formed a beam of light that was 100 meters wide and shot towards the two. The power contained in the dark beam is more than twice as strong as the compressed power just now. Wherever the beam of light went, the space was shattered. At the critical moment, the fused eye of judgment suddenly emitted a strange flame. The flame became brighter and brighter, and then a big hand emitting blue flames directly blocked the direction of the dark energy beam. This hand must be much larger than that of a normal person, more than 1 meter wide, but compared with the dark beam that was 100 meters wide, it was still much smaller. The difference of 100 times looked like a man and a mantis. This was really the hell version of a mantis trying to stop a chariot. However, at this moment, a scene with a strong sense of contrast appeared. The flaming palm easily blocked the dark beam in front of it, even though the dark energy contained extremely terrifying power and powerful might, but it was still easily blocked in front of it by the flaming palms. However, this was not over yet, and soon another hand stretched out from the light. Then came the legs, the body, and the head. In just a few seconds, a flaming giant stood out from the light. The giant was about 100 meters tall, with azure flames of the Holy Spirit burning all over his body. However, in addition to the flames of the Holy Spirit, there was also a dark purple armor of hell flame. His face was not clear, but his eyes were extremely eye-catching. What else could it be but the fused eye of judgment? In fact, the style of the hell flame armor was also very familiar to old Carter and Johnny. It was completely a fusion version of the hell armor they both wore. Old Carter, what the hell is this? Looking at the flaming giant transformed by the ultimate eye of judgment, Johnny was stunned and asked in disbelief, "I don't know what happened, but I think there should be some accident." The corners of old Carter's mouth twitched. He didn't understand what was going on. The ultimate judgment he understood was not like this. Chapter 303 Successful Judgment. The Death of Mephisto. Anyway, we succeeded after all. Old Carter, can you still control the Eye of Judgment? Johnny held back for a long time, and finally shook his head and asked. No, he seems to have a unique self-awareness. I can sense what he is going to do at this moment, but I can't control him. The weak flame in old Carter's eyes flashed for a moment and he shook his head. However, at this moment, the flame giant suddenly opened his mouth and formed a blue and purple intertwined flame vortex. With a piercing sound, the flame giant actually stuffed the dark beam into the flame vortex. The dark beam had almost no resistance in the flame vortex. It was directly shredded. The picture at this time can be said to be quite beautiful. A huge dark beam. One end is on Mephisto's side, and the other end is on the flame giant's side. If you don't know, you might think it's some special couple playing games. https://w.v''s.het/ something like a double dragon going out to sea. No matter how powerful the dark beam is, it is still limited. Under the constant strangulation of the flame vortex, it soon dissipated completely. Mephisto looked at the suddenly appeared flame giant and tilted his head, as if he was extremely puzzled by it. He didn't understand why such a sudden change happened. Mephisto, whose body was controlled, watched all this. He couldn't help but be filled with surprise and doubt. He never thought that the Ghost Rider he created could reach such a level. With the power emitted by the flame giant, it is probably not much worse than his peak moment. Not to mention, the flame giant also contains a very terrifying power of judgment. If Johnny and old Carter had used this trick to deal with him just now, I'm afraid he would have disappeared before he was used by others. There was even an inexplicable sense of relief. The flame giant didn't care whether Mephisto launched an attack or not. I saw a flash of fire behind him, and then two color fire wings appeared behind him. As the fire wings shook, the flame giant turned directly into a stream of light and rushed to Mephisto. The sandbag-sized fist hit Mephisto hard. Chapter 182. Fancy, vulnerable. A look of disdain appeared on Brashu's big face. Then he smashed it down without any mercy. Bang, bang, bang. Explosions continued to ring. Soon, hundreds of magic circles in front of Ancient One shattered one after another, and they were as fragile as paper in front of Brashu. Ancient One's expression was solemn. She didn't want to mobilize the power of the gem, but now it seems that she can't move. As Ancient One's hands changed again, the necklace on her chest slowly unfolded, emitting a green light. Brashu's huge body paused for a moment, and then the time around him began to reverse rapidly. The magic circles that were smashed by Brashu began to slowly recover, and Brashu's figure began to slowly retreat. However, when the broken magic circles were half restored, Ancient One's originally pale face instantly turned pale. The retreating Brashu also stopped. For some unknown reason, Brashu's body seemed to be stuck when watching a DVD. It began to overlap, some of which were illusory, and some were extremely real. Bang! With a loud noise, an invisible force burst out from Brashu's body, and then his body returned to normal. Puff! At this time, Guyi spit out a large mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale, and at the same time, he was accompanied by an unbelievable look. The green light of the time gem on his chest also became a little dim with the naked eye. TSK, I really didn't expect that you, a small human, could still use the power of time. It's a pity that if it was a day ago, you might have really succeeded, and I would have fallen into your time loop and couldn't extricate myself. It's a pity that I am now, and you can't control me with your time power. Brashu's voice was filled with a trace of relief. If Kinluo hadn't broken through the power of the Dark Lord, it would have been a great blessing for these ghosts and gods. He might have really been controlled by Guyi. Guyi's mood was extremely complicated now. It was the first time that she used the power of the time gem and it was ineffective. There is no need to say more about Dormammu. Even Doctor Strange could trap him in a time loop, not to mention that the caster is Ancient One. Ancient One is confident that even gods cannot escape the time power she casts in a short time. But this evil god in front of him can break free from her restraints in a short time. It would be strange if he didn't feel complicated. I don't want to play with you anymore. It's time to get rid of you now. The voice of Brashu fell, and the silt on the ground spread instantly. Soon the silt quickly condensed, and another Brashu appeared in this world. Just one Brashu in this world is already crowded enough. Not to mention two Brashu. Ancient One was caught in the gap between the two Brashus, and all the magic circles were smashed by these two huge monsters. TVB Novel Network. Only the small magic circles around her were barely maintained. Boom. However, at this moment, the silt Brashu exploded, and the violent impact force almost instantly tore apart the protective shield of Ancient One's body. Fortunately, Guyi still had a backup plan. Countless orange-red magic circles rose again on his robes, and turned into colors under the influence of cosmic energy. However, at the moment when these magic circles were just condensed, Guyi felt that it was dark. Then all the power around him was cut off. There was no energy between heaven and earth. There was only darkness. Guyi secretly cried out in her heart. She knew that she was in Brashu's stomach at this time, but she couldn't figure out when she was swallowed. At the same time, Old Carter and Johnny on the ground were still fighting desperately with the demonized Mephisto. The demonized Mephisto not only mastered the power of his own hell. At the same time, he could also mobilize part of Brashu's energy. The superposition of the two is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. If Johnny hadn't broken through, his strength would be far better than before. I'm afraid he and Old Carter would have been defeated. It's impossible to hold on until now. However, it's only a matter of time before they lose. Johnny prayed secretly in his heart, hoping that Kinluo could break through quickly. Otherwise, they really can't stop. Roar! The demonized Mephisto roared like a beast. Then a huge black energy ball condensed in his mouth. The surrounding hell energy quickly gathered at this moment. The energy ball twisted and changed strangely in its mouth. It looked like the tailed beast jade used by the tailed beast in Naruto. Feeling the energy condensed by the black energy ball, Old Carter's heart sank slightly, and he immediately called Johnny, who wanted to charge. Johnny, don't be impulsive. Use the trick. Will it work? We haven't succeeded once. Johnny obediently retreated to Old Carter. His expression became a little nervous. It has to work even if it doesn't work. We must stop him. Otherwise, once that energy explodes, it is very likely to break through the barrier left by Master Guyi. Kinluo will be in danger at that time, and now your flames are not so violent. The possibility of success is very high. Old Carter gritted his teeth and said, for Brother Kin. Come on. Johnny stood in front of Old Carter with a desperate attitude, and put his two hand bones together on his forehead. Old Carter also made the same move at this time. The flames around the two people also began to gather towards the forehead when they made this move. The two flames quickly condensed. Soon, an eye shape was formed at the forehead of the two people. The flame eyes were vivid. If it were not for the special color and temperature, it would not be seen that this was an eye condensed by the power of flame. As the two eyes formed, they began to slowly break away from the eyebrows of Old Carter and Johnny. Chapter 302 The Ultimate Judgment. The dark energy in front of the fire giant Mephisto began to slowly shrink after condensing to a certain extent. Not long after, The huge energy ball that was originally hundreds of meters long became the size of a ping-pong ball, although the volume has become smaller. But the power contained in it has not been reduced at all. The terrifying power caused the surrounding space to distort. Just standing there has exceeded the limit that the space can bear. The fine space cracks began to spread at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, at this time, Old Carter and Johnny were still gathering their own energy. The flame eyes at the center of their eyebrows seemed like a bottomless pit. No matter how many nether flames or Holy Spirit flames were integrated into it, they looked the same, basically no change. However, the fluctuations emitted became more and more strange. If Kinlawo was there, he would definitely sense the fluctuations emitted by these two eyes at the first time. It was the power of the Eye of Judgment. What Old Carter and Johnny are doing now is to materialize the power of their own Eye of Judgment. Whether it is Old Carter or Johnny, the strongest move of the Ghost Rider is the Eye of Judgment. The power that can be erupted by the fusion of two completely different Eyes of Judgment is definitely not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2, especially for the impact on the soul. It is absolutely terrifying. If the soul ability is slightly worse, such as Hulk, it will definitely be killed instantly. There will be no surprises, even gods, facing such a soul attack. I am afraid they will be afraid of it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, The Arm Felt Numb. Kazan was not much better. This guy used a one-handed battle axe to withstand Kinlawo's powerful mountain collapse. His arm trembled several times with the naked eye, and it was obvious that he was not feeling well. After all, this is a world of blood and energy, and Kazan is not in his original form, but is just an incarnation of the power of the blood and energy world. He can't exert the full power of his original form at all. Kinlawo, who was in a state of berserker, couldn't feel anything wrong with his arm. Seeing that the attack failed, Kinlawo decisively exerted force with both arms, and the whole person flipped to the ground. The moment he landed, Kinlawo attacked again. The giant sword in his hand chopped horizontally and vertically, and the rich blood power condensed into a cross in the air and chopped towards Kazan. It was one of the basic skills of the berserker. Cross/. Faced with such an attack, Kazan crossed the sword and axe in his hand and swung it forward with force. A blood-red cross that was no different from the cross/ appeared in the air. Two crosscuts collided in midair, and the violent blood energy spread out, constantly attacking each other. It looked like a wave. It was a bit like the flying star duel between Li Xiaoyao and Tang Yu. But in comparison, the fight between Kinlawo and Kazan was much simpler and more brutal. Just as the two blood-colored crosses collided, Kinlawo's giant sword slashed up again. The three blood-colored sword energies overlapped and instantly broke Kazan's cross-blood energy. They slashed fiercely on his chest. 3 blood marks, 1 deep and 2 shallow, were left. "It's great, it's great," Kazan roared, slashing with the sword and axe in his hand, not caring about the scars on his body at all. Kinlawo was not willing to be outdone. While the giant sword in his hand blocked the battle axe, the blood energy in the other hand condensed into a long sword, which also blocked Kazan's battle sword. Squeak, squeak. The wrestling between the sword and the axe made a creaking sound that made people feel teeth ache. Kinlawo stepped on his feet and his anger burst out. The violent blood and energy directly lifted Kazan into the air. However, before Kinlawo could use his skills to attack Kazan again, Kazan directly spun in the air. The violent blood and energy quickly turned into a storm of blood and energy along with his sword and axe. Kinlawo raised his hands when he saw this. The sword in his hands turned into blood and energy. One hand performed the soul-devouring demon sealing slash, and the other hand condensed the power of the soul-destroying hand. The blood-colored storm collided with the blood-colored vortex of the bloodthirsty demon sealing slash, and the blood and energy continued to intertwine and consume. It looked extremely spectacular. At this moment, Kinlawo's hand that gathered the power of the soul-destroying hand suddenly stretched out. He grabbed Kazan's head directly from the blood-colored tornado. "Kazan, feel what a headshot is," Kinlawo roared, and the power of the soul-destroying hand exploded. The violent blood and energy directly formed a huge blood column, which instantly blew away the blood-colored storm around Kazan. However, this is not over yet. Kinmowo's other hand also released the power of the bloodthirsty demon sealing slash. A bloody slash rushed up to the sky and slashed Kazan's body. The slash left a clear scar on Kazan's body. From the top of his head to little Kazan, it looked like Kazan was split in half. Enjoyable. This is called fighting. It's really enjoyable. Kazan fell heavily to the ground, but soon stood up again and shouted excitedly. At the same time, his eyes became more and more scarlet, and the traces of the battle on his body also returned to their original state in the dissipation of the blood mist. Even more enjoyable is still to come, Kinmowo said as the bloody power in his hand surged, and the bloody giant sword condensed again. https://w.tvts.het/hahaha. Now I'm going to start a formal counterattack, you must hold on. Kazan laughed, raised his hand, and a small blood ball condensed out. Then he raised his hand suddenly, and the blood ball rose directly into the air, and it began to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye. Almost in the blink of an eye, it turned into a large blood ball with a diameter of more than 10 meters. It looked like the sun. But this is not over yet. Kinmowo could clearly feel that there was a terrifying suction attached to the blood ball. This suction was specifically aimed at the power of blood. With the appearance of the blood ball, the giant sword condensed by blood in Kinmowo's hand became unstable. A stream of blood began to gather towards the blood ball in the sky involuntarily. Kinmowo was very familiar with this move. It was one of the skills mastered by the berserker after the second awakening. Demonic blood meteorite. The blood of the devil mobilizes the power of blood and chi, condenses into a blood ball. After the blood ball rises into the air, it can absorb the blood and chi of the enemy, thereby condensing a larger blood ball. When the blood ball reaches a certain level, it will slowly descend to cause multiple damage to the enemy, and explode after touching the ground, causing a lot of damage. I didn't expect that. I haven't mastered this trick yet, and let others use this trick against me first. Kinmowo can't let the other party absorb his blood and chi. Bloodthirsty. Kinmowo's blood and chi waves burst out, and instantly covered Kazan's body. You want blood and chi power? I'll give it to you. Facing Kinmowo's bloodthirstiness, Kazan showed a sneer on his face, without any resistance, and the violent blood and chi power instantly spread out and was used towards Kinmowo. The blood and chi power on Kazan's body is very different from Kinmowo's. The power contained in it is very violent, and it is also mixed with a certain sense of destruction. If Kinmowo absorbs it directly, it will not only not strengthen himself, instead, it will be affected by that violent blood and chi power, thereby weakening his own blood power. This is why Kinmowo did not release the bloodthirsty skill at the beginning. But now, Kinmowo is not rejecting anyone who comes. Before the violent blood power was absorbed, Kinmowo roared, and the blood around him quickly condensed, and soon formed a huge hilt. At the same time, a red and golden word kill floated above his head. It was the signature awakening skill of the Hellblood Demon God. Demon Hellblood Kill. As soon as those violent blood power approached, they were all absorbed by the Demon Hellblood Kill. Compared with Kinmowo, the Demon Hellblood Kill is not so picky. As long as it is blood power, it is completely fine. With the blessing of Kazan's blood power, the hilt behind Kinmowo instantly rose a lot. Most of the blood blade condensed. Chapter 301 Ancient One was swallowed. Combined attack move. Seeing the body of the evil god breaks Iu coming head on, Ancient One really didn't even have a chance to dodge. Brash's huge body directly covered the entire world. How to hide? Guyi gritted his teeth. His hands almost instantly formed hundreds of hand seals. It couldn't even be described as an afterimage. It was almost impossible to see any movement of Guyi's fingers. It was as if nothing had happened. In an instant, countless colorful magic circles were superimposed in front of Guyi. They appeared as if they were free, and the small magic circles surrounding Guyi also emitted a dazzling light at this moment. It was almost running to the extreme. Chapter 184. There is a lot of blood energy supply there. Kinmowo combined his two swords into one, stretched out his hand to grab the long sword and slashed it violently. Countless blood energy instantly surrounded the long sword. Chapter 299. The main course begins. It turned out to be it, mountain collapse and earth-splitting slash. The blood energy in Kinlawo's hand turned into a giant sword and slapped it towards those blood demon incarnations. Bang! With a loud bang, hundreds of blood demon incarnations were split apart along with the bloody earth by the blood sword. https://w.tvts.net/ Countless blood energy turned into starlight and merged into Kinlawo's body. Just this one time, the blood energy of mountain collapse and earth-splitting slash was replenished. Facing these blood demon incarnations, Kinlawo was particularly relaxed. These guys were completely brainless creatures. They only knew how to rush and fight, and they didn't even dodge. The gaps just smashed by mountain collapse and earth-splitting slash were soon filled by other blood demon incarnations. Boom, boom, boom. Hundreds of thick blood pillars shot up into the sky, and soon they cleared the blood demon incarnation in front of Kinlawo again. The blood energy was abundant again. Kinlawo felt the abundant blood energy in his body. Now the skills of the Berserker series can be fully displayed. Kinlawo also felt the real feeling of the Berserker. The feeling of violent and crazy fighting really made Kinlawo a little addicted. Because there was always a wave imprint suppressing it before, so Kinlawo never felt the blood energy surge. With the swing of the blood sword in his hand, Kinlawo went all out. It didn't take Kinlawo a few minutes to clean up all the blood demon incarnations. The thick blood mist in the blood world also dissipated by half. Kinlawo breathed a sigh of relief. The scarlet in his eyes gradually faded, and he regained clarity. He felt the abundant blood energy in his body. At this time, the power in his body has reached more than double the original peak state. Looking around, Kinlawo found that the bloody world still had no intention of dissipating. Obviously, the appetizer was finished and the main course was about to come on stage. Things were not as Kinlawo expected. With the changes in the surrounding blood power, countless blood powers began to condense rapidly opposite Kinlawo. The blood power gathered more and more. This time, it was not just the dissipation of the blood mist. Even the blood color of the world faded and turned into a white void. Kinlawo's face became slightly solemn. He could feel that the blood power of the big guy condensed this time was not much weaker than his own. If nothing unexpected happens, this is the last level. As long as this big guy is defeated, the breakthrough will be completely completed. The majestic blood power continued to compress and condense in front of Kinlawo. Soon a strong man holding a knife and axe was formed. The moment he saw the strong man, a trace of surprise flashed in Kinlawo's eyes. He never thought that the final big boss would be him. The strong man holding a knife and an axe was none other than Kinlawo's first ghost, Kazan of the Sword Soul. Kinlawo reacted quickly. The power of the Berserker comes from Kazan's plague curse, and the biggest enemy to be faced in the second awakening is Kazan, and there is no problem at all. Kinlawo, I didn't expect that the opponent would be me. Kazan slowly opened his scarlet eyes, and a wicked smile appeared on his face. It's indeed a little unexpected, but not so unexpected. Come on, let me see the power of the first ghost god. Kinlawo held two swords, and his expression became solemn. None of these ghosts and gods are easy to deal with, especially Kazan of the Sword Soul. This guy is a ruthless character. It's not an exaggeration to say that he is a war maniac. If he hadn't been tricked by someone close to him, it wouldn't be too difficult for this guy to take on the human forces of the arid continent. In fact, Kazan of the Sword Soul is not the real name of his ghost god name. Devil May Cry can only mobilize a part of his power, so he is named Kazan of the Sword Soul. Kazan's real name should be called Kazan, the god of destruction. Be careful, don't die. I want to experience the fun of fighting more. Kazan licked his lips, and then his figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Kinlawo in an instant. The sword and axe came out together, with an extremely terrifying momentum. Kinlawo raised his hand, crossed his swords, and performed the blocking skills. Even without the support of sword energy, Kinlawo relied on his understanding of the inner ghost sword technique to perform some skills that did not particularly require sword energy support. It's interesting, but defense is only what cowards do. Kazan grinned and showed his white teeth, and the power in his hand increased again, as if he wanted to chop Kinlawo's blood sword into pieces. Faced with such a situation, Kinlawo's arm shook, the sword edge shifted, and directly unloaded Kazan's power. Due to inertia, Kazan staggered forward half a step involuntarily. Kinluo decisively seized the opportunity. The two swords in his hands were waved continuously, and the inner ghost sword technique was continuously performed. Only 3 swords were slashed out, but countless blood-colored sword lights left dozens of wounds on Kazan's body in the blink of an eye. Seeing this, Kazan did not dodge at all, and swept the battle axe in his hand. Seeing this, Kinluo decisively dodged and retreated. Without any intention of confronting head-on, the axe fell heavily on the ground with great force. It directly cut a nearly 1,000-meter-long gully on the pure white ground. The gully was pitch black, and no one knew where it led to. At the same time, the wound behind Kazan quickly recovered as the blood mist rose. Is it the ghost swordsmanship? A group of boring guys who call themselves sword saints have developed boring moves. Kinluo, can you not be so boring? Why use this troublesome power to fight? I am really disappointed with you. Kazan licked his lips, and his resolute face showed contempt and disappointment. Kinluo suddenly felt his heart jump suddenly, and a burst of anger surged. Under the influence of the blood, the anger became more and more vigorous. Soon, Kinluo's eyes changed from clear to the way they were in the previous battle. The scarlet eyes flashed with a frightening fierce light. That's right, that's the look. This is the look a berserker should have. If you are like this, I won't be sleepy. I felt a little bored just now. Kazan clapped his hands excitedly. His long silver white hair moved without wind, and he looked like a fighting madman. As you wish, Kazan. Under the impact of blood, Kinluo's muscles trembled all over his body. This is not fear, but a manifestation of excitement to a certain extent. Collapse of the mountain. The blood-colored longsword in Kinluo's hand merged into one, turning into a blood-colored giant sword. Without saying a word, he jumped high and smashed towards Kazan. Chapter 300 Fighting Kazan. Demon Blood Meteorite. Facing Kinluo's powerful blow, Kazan did not mean to dodge at all. Instead, he waved the battle axe in his hand and came directly to catch the moon from the bottom of the sea. From bottom to top, he met the giant sword in Kinluo's hand. Bang! The giant sword collided with the battle axe, and a bloody light suddenly burst out. The violent power formed a substance and spread in all directions. Kinluo could clearly feel a huge force passing through the bloody giant sword to his arm. Chapter 185. I call this kind of tempering blood burning. When he said this, Kinluo felt as if his body was boiling. As the liquid blood power continued to appear, the heat generated by the blood burning around him not only did not decrease, but intensified. Chapter 298. The World of Blood and Energy. The incarnation of the blood demon. That kind of pain really made Kinluo feel like he was dying. It was as if there were hundreds of millions of burning ants crawling all over his body. Fortunately, with the bonus of frustration will and wave imprinting, Kinluo did not faint. But now Kinluo felt that he might as well faint. At least he would not suffer so much. Kinluo's breakthrough has always been smooth sailing. I really haven't encountered such a painful situation now. When I broke through to the Dark Lord, I didn't. It's the same second awakening. Why is Emperor Blood Killing Heaven so special? In fact, Kinluo didn't know that the reason why the breakthrough to the Dark Lord was so smooth. There are 2 special reasons. First, Kinluo has absolute control over the ghost hand. Second, Jiger directly acknowledged Kinluo's identity as the Dark Lord. Otherwise, let alone Jiger's problems, Kinluo would have a hard time getting through the 8 great ghosts. But breaking through the Emperor Blood Killing Heaven is not that easy. At most, Kazan's curse cannot change, but he still has to bear the pain of blood burning himself. Soon, most of the blood power in Kinluo's body had turned into liquid. At this moment, Kinluo felt a hot air rushing to his head. Everything in front of him began to change dramatically. The whole world completely turned bloody. Endless blood mist filled the air. For a moment, Kinluo couldn't help but feel a little dazed. Those blood mists seemed to have undergone some wonderful changes at this moment. First, 3 sturdy black men appeared in front of Kinluo. These 3 people were the 3 street thugs that Kinluo killed when he just gained power. It's just that they are now completely condensed by blood mist, so it's not appropriate to call them black people. They should be called blood people. Not only them, but also the scum, abominations, big bosses of the 10 Commandments gang, and the little guys created by the big bosses. In short, almost all the guys killed by Kinluo were condensed by the blood mist at this time. Illusion? Impossible. If it is an illusion, the mind is not a decoration, and it can be seen through at a glance. Kinluo looked at the scene in front of him. He couldn't help but be secretly alert in his heart. At the same time, he wondered why such a change happened. However, at this moment, G.S. D's voice was clearly transmitted to Kinluo's ears again, and in this process, the berserkers will endure unimaginable pain. The majestic blood power will not only overflow their whole body, but also erode their spirits. The blood demon incarnation from purgatory will continue to wreak havoc in their minds. Therefore, only the berserkers who have successfully blood burned can freely control the majestic blood power to become a blood demon, thus advancing to a higher level of the Hell Blood Demon God Emperor Blood Killing Heaven. After G.S. D's voice fell, the bloody figures in front of Kinluo raised their heads one after another, with dazzling bloody light flashing in their eyes. The look in Kinluo's eyes was full of cruelty. TSK, it seems that in order to complete the breakthrough, I have to kill you guys again? How embarrassing. Kinluo's heart was almost not stirred by this scene. He looked at those blood demon incarnations with fierce faces with great interest. I really didn't expect that my own blood demon would be revealed in such a situation. Roar! The blood demon incarnations almost roared at the same time. Then all the blood demon incarnations rushed towards Kinluo. Those people from the Ten Commandments gang even started firing directly. The guns condensed by blood actually fired bullets. Scarlet bullets were fired from the muzzles, passing through those blood demon incarnations, and shot towards Kinluo. TVB Novel Network. Kinluo stretched out his hand and waved. The power of blood and energy surged, and two long swords condensed by blood and energy appeared in his hands. As the long sword in Kinluo's hand danced, it was like two big windmills. It accurately split the bullets in the air into half. In addition, it also killed all the blood demon incarnations that were approaching. In this blood world, Kinluo could not exert almost all of his strength. Whether it was ghost energy, sword energy, or wave power, none of them could be exerted. The restrictions were not great. The blood power was not a hindrance. After all, the whole world was condensed by blood. It's just that the amount he absorbed just now was a little small. Otherwise, Kinluo would not have condensed only two long swords. It has to be said that this blood world is really interesting. It's like some special copy. Fortunately, although the sword energy can't be used, Kinluo's perception of the Sword Saint and the keen perception brought by the wave perception have not disappeared. So Kinluo can still easily deal with these not-so-strong blood demon incarnations. After those blood demon incarnations and bullets were destroyed by Kinluo, they turned into drops of blood in midair. Then, as if being pulled by something, they merged directly into Kinluo's body. In an instant, the blood energy in Kinluo's body increased a little, which was much more than the amount of blood energy he had just absorbed. Kinluo's eyes lit up immediately. Without saying a word, he directly mobilized the blood energy to bless himself with a wave of rampage buff. With the blessing of rampage, Kinluo became excited, and when he looked at those blood demon incarnations again, his heart began to beat wildly, and he rushed forward involuntarily. A crazy fight began. Not long after, most of the blood demon incarnations of the Ten Commandments were destroyed by Kinluo, and Kinluo's blood energy also recovered about 1/10 of the amount. However, at this moment, a huge blood-colored figure rushed out from countless blood shadows. Who else could it be if it wasn't the abomination that Kinluo forced to try? I saw the abomination raised his fists and fell from the sky. It was like a small meteorite. Still want to come down? Go ahead. Angry explosion. Kinluo grinned. He had noticed this big guy a long time ago. He stepped on the ground suddenly, and a huge blood circle condensed on the ground in an instant. Then the blood power like a waterfall rushed up to the sky, just to meet the fast-falling abomination. Bang! Under the impact of the blood power, the abomination didn't even touch Kinluo, and it exploded like fireworks. At this time, Kinluo felt that the blood power rose again. Sure enough, the more powerful these blood demon incarnations are, the more blood power they can bring to him. Kinluo's eyes swept to the big boss behind him. Chapter 186. Bang! In an instant, Ancient One was knocked back. Soon he disappeared into the sky and turned into a small point of light. A mere human being still wants to shake the evil god. Before Brashu finished speaking, he suddenly felt a burning sensation behind him. Then he saw a huge spark portal covering his body. And Ancient One, who didn't know where he flew to, was standing on his back, quickly pinching his fingers and chanting. As the voice of Ancient One's spell continued to sound, the spark portal instantly split into two into four, and soon hundreds of spark portals covered Brashu's head. It looked like a fish head with chopped peppers on fire. Chapter 297 The evil god showed his power and pulled into the home court. As the spark portal continued to shrink, in an instant, Brashu was strangled into a Michelin sign. Dark purple blood continued to overflow from his big head. After falling to the ground, bursts of black smoke emerged. The already dry and withered land of hell turned dark after it came into contact with Brashu's blood. Waves of evil and death emanated from the land. It looked extremely weird. I originally wanted to save some strength to deal with Kinluo, but it seems that you are really looking for death. Well, then I will fulfill your wish. Brashu's angry voice sounded. Then a terrifying dark purple aura emanated from his body, and the rock-like scales around his body opened. He directly opened the spark portal. However, this was not the end. With the erosion of the dark purple aura, the shining sparks of the spark portal suddenly stagnated. https://w.tvts.net/boom. In the next second, hundreds of spark portals exploded one after another. Seeing that the situation was not right, Guyi immediately wanted to leave Brashu's body, but the rock-like scales seemed to have spirituality. It seemed to sense that Guyi was leaving. Those scales swept towards Ancient One like waves. At the same time, they were mixed with the unique dark aura of the evil god Brashu. Break! Ancient One shouted. He put his hands together and then slapped the scales that were surging like waves under his feet. The huge colorful magic circle spread out and directly suppressed the scales on the ground. Crack, crack. In less than a second, the magic circle made a sound like glass breaking. Seeing this scene, Ancient One's face finally changed a little. She never thought that her magic circle would be so vulnerable in front of Brashu. But being able to hold on for this moment was enough. Ancient One changed his hand gestures again, and the whole person's figure fled and disappeared on the spot. Boom. It was also at this moment that the spark portals and the magic circle exploded around Brashu. This power was extremely terrifying, and it could even be said that the whole hell trembled because of it. After the explosion, Brashu's intact big head still stood in the sky. The huge eyes were full of mockery as they looked at a place 100 meters away. The next second, Guyi slowly showed up under the gaze of Brashu. Puff. Guyi groaned, and then spit out a large mouthful of blood with black gas. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, and her expression became a little ugly. Idiot human, do you think it's so easy to stand on my head? Jig doesn't even dare, so why'd you? Brashu's arrogant voice sounded, mixed with a bit of complacency. Guyi did not answer. She stared at Brashu, and couldn't help but feel a little scared. If it weren't for the cosmic energy imprint in her soul might have been contaminated by the evil power of this evil god just now. It's not a trivial matter for the soul to be contaminated by the evil god. If things go wrong, she will be in trouble today. Kinluo, this guy, it's okay to create so many dangerous guys. Doesn't he know how to be on guard? Guyi complained rarely. The colorful mark between the eyebrows flashed with dazzling light, and then the surrounding space began to distort and change. Before Brash could react, he found himself in an upside-down world. It was the specialty of Master Ancient One, the mirror space. Ancient One stood in the mirror space, and his breathing became slightly heavier. Fine beads of sweat also appeared on his forehead. She looked at Brash in disbelief. She never thought that pulling this big guy into the mirror space would consume so much of her strength. When she thought about it, when she pulled the Devourer of Planets, it was far less than it is now. What kind of monster is this? Another space? No, this is another space. Brash looked at the surrounding scene, and the contempt in his eyes became more and more obvious, as if he was watching a joke. Mirror space, just a little trick, but now this world belongs to me. It shouldn't be a problem to hold you back. After calming down, Ancient One spoke in a calm tone. Really? Why do I feel that this world should be mine? It's a different space. How about showing you my home field? Brashu said. The huge body began to fall slowly. Even when it landed at the edge of the space, it did not stop at all, but merged into it. Seeing this, Guyi secretly cried out in her heart that it was not good, and subconsciously wanted to release the mirror space. As a result, at this moment, the mirror space had been out of her control. I saw that the ground of the mirror space was gradually covered by black silt. The silt spread more and more. Soon it filled 2/3 of the mirror world. Guyi's mood became heavier and heavier. She was suspended at the top of the mirror space, surrounded by 9 super huge magic circles. It almost blocked the sky above the entire silt pool. At the same time, Guyi vigilantly sensed the movement in the silt pool to prevent Brashu from attacking from behind. Rumble. Suddenly, a loud noise came, and the whole silt pool rolled, and Brashu's huge head carried a terrifying force and smashed towards Guyi. In the blood pool, Kinluo has reached the limit of absorbing blood energy. The blood energy in his body is burning at this moment. Countless blood-colored flames are burning crazily in Kinluo's body, burning the blood energy continuously. The blood energy is constantly rolling in the blood-colored flames. Soon, something like a blood bead is formed, flowing in Kinluo's body. This is the change after the blood energy is condensed. It is also the first step for the Hell Blood Demon God to break through to the Emperor Blood-killing heaven. A familiar and long-lost old voice came from Kinluo's mind. This time it was not anyone's memory. Instead, the phantom of GST walked directly in front of Kinluo. Slowly sitting down, the old ghost's hand lightly tapped the long knife in his hand and slowly spoke. The scene of excessive blood energy gushing out is indeed terrifying, but this is the path that the berserkers must take. The powerful blood energy can no longer be carried in that weak body. Only after the tempering of blood energy can we truly control this ultimate blood energy. Chapter 187. At this time, Johnny was burning Mephisto with the flame of the Holy Spirit. He only felt that the space in front of him seemed to be distorted. Then, the Mephisto who was about to dive disappeared in front of him. Johnny was stunned for a moment, looking at everything in front of him in disbelief. He didn't understand why his enemy suddenly disappeared. What kind of change has happened? Johnny had a bad premonition in his heart and manipulated his own power. He integrated the surrounding Holy Spirit flames into the spiritual sea of consciousness. In an instant, countless memories poured into Johnny's mind. These memories were all of the angel Gothel. Due to his own reasons, the angel Gothel fell into a deep sleep at this time, but just before falling asleep, all the power had been integrated into Johnny's soul. Now Johnny and him are completely in a state of you and me, I and you. It's just that Johnny has just merged this power, and he still can't control it all. When he completely masters it, although he is still not as good as Mephisto at his peak, but with the addition of the Streamer Star Meteor Knife and Tony's armor, at least he would have the capital to confront Mephisto in his prime. It can even be said that under certain conditions, he could kill Mephisto. However, Johnny now no longer cares about any messy memories and the perception of power. He just wants to know what happened now. Mephisto disappeared inexplicably, as the flame of the Holy Spirit overlapped with Johnny's spiritual sea of consciousness. Kinluo's imprint also returned to the spiritual sea of consciousness. Johnny only felt that the scene in front of him changed, and when he came to his senses, he saw the low-profile version of Brash Mephisto. Chapter 296. Ancient One vs. Evil God Brash Mephisto. Damn it, what on earth happened? Johnny was a little confused when he saw the scene in front of him. The guy who was about to die suddenly disappeared, and then became full of energy. It's too dreamy. Is Mephisto's vitality so tenacious? Just when Johnny was puzzled, old Carter's voice came over. Be careful, Johnny. Mephisto should be affected by Kinluo's terrible big eye, so he has changed like this. Old Carter looked at the transformed Mephisto with a serious look, and the battle axe and the Hell Soul Cannon gathered their strength secretly, although he was not sure whether his attack would be effective against Mephisto. The current situation did not allow him to think too much. Isn't that the power projection that Brother Kin often summons? How could this happen? Brother Kin will not have any problems, right? Johnny looked at the huge figure of Brasu in the sky with confusion. This big guy should be the projection of a certain evil god. I can feel that his power is quite similar to that of Dormammu, but it is much stronger than Dormammu. Kinluo's current situation is still okay, but he is in a critical period of power breakthrough. If I am not mistaken, this evil god wants to take the opportunity to sneak attack Kinluo and get rid of his control, Guyi said with a slightly solemn tone while controlling the secret magic circle. But, if he wants to sneak attack Brother Qin, why does he bring Mephisto with him? I almost killed him just now. Johnny looked at the body of Mephisto who was standing there in a daze, his tone full of unwillingness, even a little regretful. If he had known that this would happen, he would not have used the Holy Spirit flame to burn Mephisto's sins. It would be better to kill him directly. I don't know what specific connection Kinluo has with these evil gods, but judging from the status of both parties, Kinluo is obviously in the master position. Even if it is not a master-servant relationship, it must not be much different. So he must have some kind of limitation, unable to really attack Kinluo, or unable to hurt Kinluo, so he will borrow Mephisto's hand. Guyi's voice fell. Old Carter and Johnny nodded at the same time. Obviously, they agreed with Guyi's statement. It must be said that Guyi's analysis is still very accurate, and he analyzed Brasu almost instantly. A bunch of troublesome ants. Get out of here if you know what's good for you. My target is Kinluo. You have no relationship with him. Why are you giving your life to them? Brashu's deep voice resounded through the world. Inexplicably, Old Carter and Johnny felt a little strange in their hearts. They felt that what Brashu said made sense at this moment. It seemed to be the case. They really didn't need to face such a powerful enemy for Kinluo, an outsider. Suddenly, Old Carter and Johnny's bodies shook slightly, and then traces of engraving appeared on their skulls. It was Kinluo's wave engraving. In an instant, the flames and the eye sockets that had become a little dim became bright again. Wisps of black breath slowly flowed out of Old Carter and Johnny's bodies, which looked extremely weird, but it soon dissipated in the air. Damn it, how could this happen? Did just one sentence almost control us? Johnny's doubtful voice sounded, and now he only felt a fear in his heart. If it weren't for the power left by Kinluo, they might be controlled by others without knowing it. In comparison, Guyi's condition is much better. Her own soul cultivation is much stronger than Johnny and Old Carter. Coupled with the blessing of cosmic energy, she had already sensed it as soon as the seductive voice power of Brashu approached. Directly when the secret magic to block the approach of Brashu's power. Be careful, leave the big guy up there to me. Don't let Mephisto get close to the blood pool, otherwise Kinluo's life may be in danger. Guyi's voice fell, directly lifted up the huge colorful magic circle and flew towards the direction of Brashu. Humphrey, seeing Ancient One rushing over, Brashu snorted coldly. Suddenly, a thunder-like sound formed ripples in the air and directly hit Ancient One. Faced with such a situation, Ancient One did not dodge or evade, and directly raised the magic circle to push over. Buzz buzz buzz, the magic circle collided with the sound waves, and suddenly made a series of buzzing sounds. But soon, Ancient One broke through the obstruction of the sound waves and rushed to Brashu. At this time, both Ancient One and Brashu showed some surprise on their faces. Ancient One did not expect that Brashu's attack would be blocked by her so easily. Brashu was also puzzled, according to his understanding of Ancient One through Kinluo. Just now, Ancient One should not have received it so easily. Bang! Ancient One was the first to come back to his senses, and the magic circle in his hand slammed heavily on Brashu's huge head, and suddenly there was a loud noise. There was a small dent on the huge head. It was like being hit by the smallest hammer. Damn human, go to hell. Brashu was also a little angry after being hit by this. He opened his mouth wide and countless tentacles shot out. The dense black tentacles flew towards Ancient One like raindrops. Faced with such a scene, Ancient One's expression became very solemn. The colorful light between her eyebrows shone. Then she put her hands together, and in an instant, the huge magic circle quickly split apart, turning into thousands of small magic circles surrounding Ancient One. A 360-degree defense without dead angles came directly. Ding ding ding, dense collision sounds continued to sound, but Brashu's tentacles could not break through her defense. Seeing this scene, Brashu simply thrust his body forward, sweeping the wind and clouds, and crashed into Ancient One's magic circle. Chapter 188. Mephisto gritted his teeth, and as if he was in his last moments, he roared out this sentence. Ha 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 ha. Very good, get ready to accept the power of another world. After Brash said this with a big laugh, the whole swamp became boiling. Then countless spear-like spikes shot out from the swamp and instantly pierced Mephisto's body. In an instant, Mephisto felt dark, damp, cold, biting. At the same time, countless mixed evil forces were poured into his body. This power was very powerful, and he had never heard of or seen it before. Subconsciously, Mephisto wanted to struggle. This power was too painful, even hundreds of times and thousands of times stronger than the pain of the soul being destroyed. It's a pity that he is now a fish on the chopping board. There is no struggle and choice at all. He can only watch his body being eroded by this power. I don't know how long it took. Just when Mephisto wanted to erase his soul to end this pain, his body suddenly loosened. Then, a powerful force surged out of his body. This inexhaustible power not only made him a little dazed. This feeling was even stronger than the power of hell, more familiar. How do you feel, Mephisto? Are you sure you can kill Kinluo? That bastard. Brax's voice sounded, containing a trace of fatigue and weakening that was difficult to conceal. After all, in this situation, Brax could not release his most complete power. So, for him, such an evil god version of Mephisto was also a big consumption. It feels good. It would be even better if you could give me all your power, Mephisto said with a fierce light flashing in his eyes. The sharp claws turned directly into a black shadow and attacked Brax. Seeing such a scene, Brax's eyes flashed with a trace of mockery. https://w.tvts.net/things like betrayal. These ghosts and gods are professionals. If they are beaten in their own profession, how can these ghosts and gods survive? Chapter 295. Controlling the Body. The low-profile version of Brashu. The moment when Mephisto's claws are about to touch Brashu, a dark purple light flashed in Brashu's huge eyes. Apart from anything else, this dark purple light alone almost illuminated the entire swamp. At this time, Mephisto suddenly felt a shock all over his body, and his body was suddenly out of his control. He is now like an outsider, completely losing control of himself. He can only watch himself withdraw his offensive and kneel in front of Brashu. Haha. Brashu sneered and said sarcastically, Mephisto, you are really ridiculous. No wonder you will be defeated by Kinluo. Since you're still happy to agree to my request, I will be merciful and let you witness yourself killing Kinluo. As Brashu's voice fell, everything around him began to break apart. Then Mephisto felt a flash of light in front of him, and the whole person appeared on the opposite side of Johnny. Old Carter and Ancient One's faces turned extremely ugly when they saw the scene in front of them. The moment Brashu's head emerged in the sky just now, they were already on guard, but when they saw that the giant beast was Brashu, the two of them let down their guard for the most part. After all, Brashu had always been Kinluo's tool. Old Carter and Ancient One saw Brashu being used by Kinluo more than once. Even Ancient One himself doubted whether he was too suspicious. Maybe Brashu just came to protect Kinluo's breakthrough. But they never thought that Brashu at this time was completely here to be the sixth to pit Kinluo. A dark purple beam of light fell on Johnny's body almost at lightning speed. When they reacted, it was too late. The light had already merged into Johnny's body. Damn it. What on earth are you going to do? Old Carter was shocked, and the dark flames around him surged and quickly gathered in the hell soul-devouring cannon. Brashu did not answer, but glanced at Old Carter and Guyi with extremely disdainful eyes. Damn it. Old Carter often lost his original calmness when facing Johnny. Now it was no exception. Old Carter raised his hand and fired a cannon without saying a word. Now he no longer cared whether Brashu was Kinluo's subordinate. He just wanted to know what Brashu did to Johnny. The surging dark flame column soared into the sky and shot towards Brashu. However, this seemingly surging and thick dark flame column, in front of Brashu's huge body, it was not much different from a toothpick. Carlo's power? It's ridiculous. Even if Carlo's body came to see me, he would have to go around. Brashu smiled contemptuously, opened his mouth directly, and swallowed the dark flame into his stomach. He even smacked his lips with unsatisfied taste. but the sound of his smacking lips was not much different from thunder. For a moment, old Carter began to doubt his life. His heart was filled with disbelief. He never thought that his powerful attack would not even cause a wave in front of Brash. Ancient One's expression became solemn at this time. The colorful light between his eyebrows surged, then his hands turned over, and a huge colorful magic circle spread out. This is a new power born from the combination of cosmic energy and Ancient One's own magic. It must be said that the cosmic power mark of the Devourer of Planets is much stronger than the dark mark of Dormammu. It also greatly increases Ancient One. Her strength has been qualitatively improved. It is no exaggeration to say that the current Ancient One can completely beat the two of his former selves. And there is still a little more. With the appearance of the colorful magic circle, Brash's expression finally became a little solemn. If it was his original body, he would not care about Ancient One and Old Carter at all. But now it is not possible. The reason why he was able to deal with Old Carter easily just now was entirely because of the special connection between ghosts and gods. Powerful ghosts and gods can devour weak ghosts and gods. Brashu is a more powerful ghost than Carlo, so he can easily devour the power of the Nether Flame. But facing Ancient One, Brashu will not be so easy. Ancient One seems to have discovered the clue. Just when she wanted to activate the magic circle, suddenly Johnny exuded an extremely evil aura. The next second, these auras quickly condensed, and a Mephisto who shocked Old Carter and Ancient One appeared in front of them. At this time, Mephisto exuded the same dark purple light as Brashu. All the scales on his body disappeared, replaced by tentacles. It looks extremely disgusting. At the same time, Mephisto's head also turned into Brashu's appearance. Billy, whose head occupies half of his body has become extremely bloated. At first glance, it seems to be a low-profile version of Brashu. Chapter 189, Johnny is different. From a certain perspective, Johnny is just a poor guy deceived by the devil. Even if he has some sins, they are only within the scope of ordinary people. So Johnny has this opportunity. He has the opportunity to truly awaken the spirit of revenge. But even so, Old Carter is not sure whether Johnny can really succeed. After all, the spirit of revenge is too crazy. He is already a rational existence. Everything is almost done according to instinct. If you want to awaken him, unless there is a miracle, there is basically no hope. But who would have thought that a miracle happened in front of Old Carter? I never thought that Johnny could master the true power of the spirit of revenge at such a critical moment. TVB Novel Network. In an instant, Old Carter's heart settled down. With the holy spirit flame of the angel Gothel, Johnny is not inferior to Mephisto in his body. At least there will be no accidents. Old Carter breathed a long sigh of relief. After being nervous for so long, he was finally able to relax. At this time, Old Carter suddenly thought of what Ancient One said to him before. A blessing in disguise, releasing the real power. Good guy. This is simply a prophet. What he said is too accurate. Old Carter turned his head to look at the calm Ancient One and asked, Supreme Sorcerer, how do you know that Johnny will be fine and that it will be a blessing in disguise? Ancient One did not answer, but just smiled and shook his head. Seeing this, Old Carter nodded slightly. Since the other party did not want to say it, he was also tactful and did not say more. Suddenly Johnny was shocked. A faint black gas emanated from the bone joints around his body. These black gases, as soon as they appeared, were completely absorbed by the streamer star meteorite knife in his hand. In an instant, Old Carter became uneasy again. He was too familiar with this black gas. This was the soul power of Mephisto. In this situation, it is clear that the winner has been decided. As Mephisto's soul power dissipated faster and faster, the flames of the Holy Spirit around Johnny were also increasing. Soon he returned to the normal appearance of the Ghost Rider when he transformed. But this is not over yet. The flame of the Holy Spirit was still constantly strengthening and solidifying, and the dissipated soul energy was also becoming more and more pure. Old Carter clenched his fists nervously. His heart was full of excitement for revenge. He had been pent up with this hatred for too long, although he was a little disappointed that he didn't kill his enemy with his own hands. But Johnny was able to solve Mephisto, and for him, there was no big difference between killing his enemy with his own hands. Don't be too happy now, Maybe we should consider some other problems. Suddenly, Guyi raised his head and looked at the black clouds in the sky, and his expression changed slightly. Old Carter didn't quite understand what Guyi meant, but the moment he raised his head, the dark flames all over his body stopped. I saw a giant beast showing its head in the sky. Chapter 294 Familiar Routine. Professional betrayal in Johnny's spiritual world. Under the scorching of the flame of the Holy Spirit, Mephisto's soul power has dissipated by almost 99%. Only a little bit and the soul shell are still maintaining his existence. Consciousness has not completely dissipated. Mephisto's heart was filled with deep reluctance at this time. Not long ago, he was the Lord of Hell, below the gods and above millions of demons in hell. He enjoyed everything, not only in hell, but even in the universe. His name was well known, but with the sudden appearance of Kinluo, his constant revenge ended up like this. How could the Lord of Hell be willing to accept such a tragic and hasty ending? However, at this moment, a deep voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Mephisto, are you willing to die like this? Are you willing to die in the hands of Kinluo's lackeys? Hearing this voice, Mephisto, whose consciousness was gradually blurred, suddenly felt a shock all over his body. Everything in front of him seemed to be still, even the blazing flame of the Holy Spirit stopped burning. Then the world in front of her changed drastically. The original spiritual space was replaced by an endless dark swamp. The strong dark and chaotic evil aura made even him, the Lord of Hell, feel terrified at this time. Who are you? Mephisto's weak voice sounded, and his heart was full of disbelief. I didn't expect that I would have such a thing happen when I reached this point. But why is this routine so familiar? Suddenly Mephisto reacted. When he fooled those unwilling souls before, he seemed to lead out their unwillingness, then use a little bit of recyclable power to exchange for their souls. But Mephisto never thought that this kind of thing would happen to him one day. What is this? Heaven has a good turn? My name is Brashu, and I am the most powerful evil god. If you are unwilling to die like this, then accept my power. I will give you a chance to revenge Kinluo, who you hate the most. As Brashu's tempting voice sounded, soon a huge beast appeared in front of Mephisto. The beast almost filled the entire world, but it was only his head. The body was not shown. You are also Kinluo apostrophe s stray dog y tell me these. Mephisto sneered, and because of his weak soul, his speech became intermittent. Why? Just because you are unwilling. And who said that dogs can't bite back their masters? Kinluo will die in my hands sooner or later, but for some reason, I can't really do anything to him. To put it bluntly, you are a tool to help me kill Kinluo. Now he is at the critical moment of breakthrough. He can't resist at all. Are you willing to give up such an opportunity? What else do you have to lose now? You are just a dying ant. Now either promise me that you will have a chance for revenge, or just disappear like this. You are not irreplaceable. Brashu tore everything apart without hesitation and put the bloody reality in front of Mephisto. This is different from Mephisto's deception. He will give unlimited hope to those who dare not. But Brashu did the opposite and put the choice directly in front of Mephisto. Mephisto was silent at this time, feeling the power of his soul constantly dissipating. Even if Brashu used some kind of power to pull him into another space, but his soul still did not stop dissipating. But the speed of dissipation became extremely slow. Brashu said something, and Mephisto agreed very much. Yes, what else can he lose now? His soul is about to die, and everything has nothing to do with him anymore. Is he really willing to die like this? Even if he is going to die, can't he trick Kinluo? Even if he can't kill Kinluo, don't let Kinluo have an easy time. The more he thought about it, the more fierce Mephisto's eyes became. Even the constantly dissipating soul and will can't stop the murderous light that burst out at this time. Brashu, I promise you, you can do whatever you want. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190. The spirit of vengeance stared at Johnny, who was slowly disappearing, with his body trembling constantly. He didn't know what kind of feelings he had for these hosts. Perhaps they were all mutually beneficial, but the spirit of vengeance really didn't want Johnny to die at this moment. Especially he didn't want him to die in the hands of his enemies, die in front of him. Mephisto looked at the scene in front of him and smiled happily. Finally, there was something that made him feel happy. Die, all of you die. Damn the spirit of vengeance. Damn the Ghost Rider, all of you die. No. However, at this moment, the spirit of vengeance let out a shrill roar. It was also at this moment that the raging flames around suddenly stopped. It was as if time had stopped, but soon the flames moved again. A wisp of blue flame appeared above the flame. The blue flame was different from the flame that exuded a breath of destruction. The blue flame exuded the power of life, full of vitality. Damn it! How could it be? How could it still have this power? Could it be? Mephisto muttered in disbelief, and then suddenly turned his head and looked at Johnny, whose power had almost dissipated by half in his hand. The spirit of vengeance itself is the transformation of the fallen angel, and the flame full of vitality contained in him was transformed into the hellfire of destruction under the lure of Mephisto. Originally, Mephisto thought that the spirit of vengeance would be like this in this life, but he never thought that the spirit of vengeance could still find his own power, and the opportunity to promote the spirit of vengeance. It must be to save Johnny. Only the Holy Spirit flame can save Johnny, who is about to die. Now I want to stop all of this from happening, only by completely making the spirit of vengeance despair. Then the Holy Spirit flame will no longer exist. A fierce light flashed in Mephisto's eyes, and the black breath began to exert force. Prepare to kill Johnny before the spirit of vengeance completely awakens the Holy Spirit flame. However, when only a head was left of Johnny's body, boom! A loud noise suddenly came from the lake opposite the flame. Then a mark flew out from the center of the lake, soaring into the air, and pressing towards Johnny's position like a mountain. The mark exuded a terrifying power, and almost instantly suppressed Mephisto to the ground. https://www.tvts.net/ The surrounding black air also dissipated completely under the suppression of the mark. It was as if it had never appeared again. It was also at this moment that the surrounding flames completely transformed into blue holy flames. The spirit of revenge looked at Johnny, who only had a head left, and a relaxed expression appeared on his face. It transformed into a drop of blue liquid. It floated in front of Johnny and merged into his brow. The surrounding holy flames seemed to be attracted by something and surrounded Johnny. In the blue flames, Johnny's body began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon it returned to its original appearance. Then a pair of wings condensed by the flame of the Holy Spirit appeared behind Johnny. It looked extremely gorgeous. Mephisto's teeth were almost broken when he saw the scene in front of him. How could he not have thought that everything was about to end? But in the end, it failed. Mephisto left a backup in Johnny's soul. Kinlawo also left something behind. Kinlawo not only left an imprint in Johnny's soul, Old Carter also had an imprint to protect his body. After all, the two of them were charging for themselves, and in order to ensure that there was no mistake, Kinlawo deliberately left such a hand. But Kinlawo himself did not expect that the backup he left behind would actually turn the tide at the critical moment. Chapter 293 The Death of Mephisto. Revenge. Mephisto. Johnny slowly opened his eyes. Surrounded by the flame of the Holy Spirit, he soon became the appearance of the spirit of vengeance just now. But compared to the red and violent spirit of vengeance, Johnny at this moment not only did not have the slightest bit of viciousness, but also had a sacred feeling. Every move he made was full of some kind of wonderful rhythm. Mephisto did not answer Johnny's words, but just stared at Johnny. This feeling of failure made his annoyance and pain in his heart almost reach its peak. Mephisto, atone for the sins you have committed. Johnny did not care whether Mephisto answered or not. He raised his hand, and the flame of the Holy Spirit quickly surrounded him, and soon a blue streamer star knife appeared in his hand. However, the long knife condensed by the flame of the Holy Spirit was different from that condensed by ordinary flames. There was no tongue of fire jumping and entwining on the long knife, but it was very calm, looking like a nice knife. It felt like the famous knife Guanchai Zheng's. Johnny, don't be so proud. It's not you who defeated me. If it weren't for that damn guy Kinluo, you would have died today. Mephisto looked at the long knife, as if he felt the threat of death, and suddenly roared wildly. The whole person began to struggle violently, and black smoke came out of his body as if it was free. The black smoke kept hitting the mark on him. Unfortunately, it had no effect at all. The mark just trembled slightly and soon returned to its original state. So what? No matter who it is, it can't change your demise today. Go and atone your sins, Johnny said, and the blue fire wings behind him shook, and then the whole person instantly appeared in front of Mephisto. The long sword was raised high and stabbed fiercely from Mephisto's top of the head. Boom! The violent energy spread out, and countless holy flames spread along the long sword to Mephisto's whole body. Even the 9 orifices were not spared. Mephisto didn't even have the chance to open his mouth, and it was already filled with the holy flame. In an instant, countless thick black smoke came out of Mephisto's body and dissipated in the air. At the same time, outside the spiritual sea of consciousness, Ancient One and Old Carter had a calm look and an anxious look on their faces. They were all staring at Johnny, who had turned into a skeleton. Suddenly, a faint blue flame of the Holy Spirit appeared in Johnny's originally dark eye sockets, and the flame was still condensing. Is this the original power of the Spirit of Vengeance? Johnny succeeded. The moment Old Carter saw the blue flame of the Holy Spirit, the flame in his eye sockets jumped wildly. This shows how much impact Johnny's change has had on him. If you want to say who knows the Spirit of Vengeance best in the world, I'm afraid Old Carter will admit that he is second, and no one dares to admit that he is first. Even Mephisto is in vain. After all, Old Carter has been with the Spirit of Vengeance for hundreds of years. During this time, Old Carter has studied the origin of the Spirit of Vengeance and what his true power is. The angel who became the Spirit of Vengeance is named Gothel. Old Carter can be said to know everything about him. This is why when he saw the blue flame coming out of Johnny's eyes, Old Carter could recognize it immediately. In those 100 years, Old Carter has tried to release the true power of the Spirit of Vengeance. Unfortunately, because of his own reasons, his sins were extremely serious. Even though he had been atonement for so many years, there were some sins that could never be completely paid off. This also meant that Old Carter could not truly master the true power of the angel Gothel, the Spirit of Vengeance. Chapter 191. Even though Mephisto noticed the danger behind him and barely avoided having his head pierced, his chest was not much better. Coupled with the flame power of the flowing star meteorite knife and the soul-absorbing characteristics of Kinluo, Mephisto was directly in a state of serious injury, just when Johnny wanted to kill him while he was sick. When he attacked again, suddenly, Mephisto grabbed the handle of the knife with both hands and pulled it forward fiercely, not caring about his dissipated soul power. At the same time, his head turned 180 degrees, and his forehead hit Johnny's burning head fiercely. Bang! With a muffled sound, the hellfire around Johnny was instantly extinguished, and at the same time, Mephisto's soul turned into black smoke and merged into Johnny's 5 orifices. In an instant, only Johnny's white skeleton body was left standing stiffly in place. It looked extremely weird. Seeing such a change, Old Carter was immediately anxious, but Johnny's accident also made him walk out of the anger of hatred. Coming to Johnny in an instant, the dark flame in Old Carter's hand flickered and jumped, just when he wanted to find out what happened to Johnny. However, at this moment, a plain voice sounded, "Carter, now their souls are intertwined. You'd better not touch him, otherwise, not only Mephisto, but Johnny will also suffer a devastating blow." Old Carter heard the words, and his hand bones filled with dark flames immediately froze in midair. Zuintu looked at Guyi, who had just reminded him, "Supreme Mage, do you have any solution?" Old Carter was really at a loss now. At the same time, his hatred for Mephisto went up a level. He really couldn't imagine what it would be like to watch Johnny get into trouble in front of him. Now the only person he could ask for help was this mysterious and powerful Supreme Mage. Kinluo was still absorbing the blood power in the blood pool. The entire blood pool was now blocked by the power of blood. Not to mention him, even Guyi couldn't get close. Not to mention that there was a blockade of Guyi around the blood pool. "Be quiet. Don't worry, Old Carter. You don't have to worry. Johnny won't be in danger this time. Maybe it will be a blessing in disguise." completely released the power of the spirit of revenge. Ancient One's eyes flashed with wisdom. The look that seemed to see through everything made old Carter feel a little more at ease. But old Carter still couldn't let go completely. After all, Johnny was the only relative he had left. Johnny slowly opened his eyes. As a result, he found that he was in a strange world. It was full of hot flames. Not far away, there was a lake. The lake and the flames intertwined and blended, which looked extremely strange. Johnny looked at the lake in the distance, with a strong sense of familiarity, and stood up and walked towards the lake. However, before he took 2 steps, the surrounding flames suddenly became turbulent. Then he saw an incredible scene. I saw a burning angel struggling desperately in the flames. His whole body became tattered because of the burning flames. The wings behind him turned into flame-bone wings. And who else could it be if not Mephisto on the burning angel? At this moment, Mephisto was pressing the burning angel tightly and biting something on him. As Mephisto bit, the flames around the angel and the luster of the bones became increasingly dim. On the contrary, Mephisto's figure gradually solidified. Johnny saw this scene. If he could not guess that Mephisto was devouring the spirit of revenge at this time, then he was really possessed by the spirit of revenge Wulawer, and the evil spirit had a cerebral thrombosis. Johnny was not afraid of Mephisto now. He endured the scorching of the surrounding flames and rushed towards Mephisto quickly. However, before Johnny got close, a burst of black air erupted from Mephisto's body. Johnny was directly blown away by the black air and fell heavily to the ground. In an instant, Johnny felt unprecedented pain. From time to time, there would be an unbearable pain in his head, as if someone was stirring his brain with a stirring stick. Seeing Johnny being knocked away, the burning angel on the ground was also anxious. His flame-bone wings were like a sickle, slashing fiercely at Mephisto on his body. Unfortunately, all his intentions were seen by Mephisto. The black air around Mephisto instantly transformed into a pair of black hands, and the flame-bone wings were pressed down by the black hands as soon as they were raised. Johnny, do you think I will give you such power so easily? Wait for me to devour your power and then use your body to escape. As long as I don't die, I will come back one day, Mephisto said, biting down again, and biting the flame-bone wings of the angel under him fiercely. The broken bone wings were sucked directly into Mephisto's mouth like jelly. The black hair surrounding him rose again. Mephisto sto you can apostrophe t kill me you can apostrophe t kill me. The flame angel, also known as the spirit of revenge, roared with resentment, and his voice was full of unwillingness. Chapter 292, Flame of the Holy Spirit, the spirit of vengeance that fell short. The hoarse voice, even more unpleasant than that of Liang Kun, sounded. In this world of burning flames, it was particularly clear. Mephisto's face was full of sarcasm when he heard it, and he spoke with disdain. Of course I know you won't die, you poor thing. An angel who saves the world, was deceived into this state. I feel sad for you. Prepare to fall into a deep sleep, then you will still be a tool in my hand. The sharp teeth tore off the flame-bone wing on the other side. It was also sucked into the mouth like sucking jelly. Mephisto, I won't let you succeed. Johnny forced himself to stand up and staggered towards Mephisto. The pain in his mind always drove him crazy, but he still wanted to stop Mephisto, even if the final price was his life. Haha, ridiculous guy. You are just as ridiculous, but you are all poor bastards deceived by me. Mephisto sneered, and the black smoke around him stretched out an arm again, holding Johnny tightly in his hand, just like holding a chick. Don't be so proud. Brother Keen will not let you go. Even if you can kill us, the final result is just to be buried with us. Johnny gritted his teeth and roared whining during the pain. Brother Kin, if it weren't for Kinluo, who do you think you are? Wait, sooner or later, your brother Kin will die in my hands. Mephisto was also angry when he heard it. But why did he sound a little angry and embarrassed? And when he said the last sentence, he was obviously not confident enough. If he could escape this time, will Mephisto really seek revenge on Kinluo? I'm afraid only he himself knows the answer. You want to provoke me with words? Congratulations, you succeeded. Now I want your life. Prepare to become my nutrients, Mephisto said, and the black air instantly wrapped around Johnny's body. With the squeeze of the black air, Johnny's body began to twist. However, Johnny's eyes never changed, just staring at Mephisto fiercely, as if he couldn't feel the pain around him. Let him go. Let him go. I don't know if Johnny's appearance stimulated the spirit of vengeance. The spirit of vengeance suddenly went crazy and spoke fluently. It struggled desperately to break through Mephisto's restrictions. It's a pity that most of his power has been eaten by Mephisto, and now he has no power to break free. I'm really unwilling to die like this. In fact, I should thank you for your power. Let me witness new world. Goodbye, spirit of vengeance. Johnny turned around at this time, looked at the spirit of vengeance, and a smile appeared on his face. Then the body broke apart, like scattered confetti, slowly dissipated. No. Chapter 192. But when Natasha noticed Hill's anxious face, she suddenly felt a pain in her heart. Realizing that something was wrong, she was afraid that something big had happened in S.H.I.E.L.D. Natasha, take me to find Miss Maypark. Something big has happened, Hill said quickly, trying to hold back his own violent breathing. Natasha didn't say much nonsense, and took her to run in the direction of Maypark. The captain not far away saw this and ran over. Several people passed through the ruined building. Soon they came to where Maypark was. At this time, Maypark was using his observation hockey to search for people trapped under the ruins. Many people were involved before, and all of them were in a state of unknown life and death. If we rely on the people of the New York rescue team alone, I'm afraid that only 1 in 10 people will survive. Noticing Hill and others, Maypark's brows frowned slightly, and she glanced at the sword seal in her hand, and seemed to have some enlightenment in her heart. I'm afraid that Ken will guess it again this time. Miss Maypark, I'm sorry to bother you, but the situation is urgent. I hope you can forgive me. After Hill calmed down, he spoke to Maypark solemnly and politely. She had to be so polite. After all, there was still some power hidden in her heart. If something really happened, I'm afraid she would be the first to be finished. Tell me what happened. Did Lu Dan cause trouble again? https://w.tvts.net/Maypark nodded slightly and asked directly. Hearing this, Natasha and the captain also set their sights on Hill. Things are complicated. Anyway, it is very likely that 2 big mushrooms will land in New York. I hope you don't misunderstand Director Nick Fury. This is a decision made by those damn termites in the parliament. Director Nick Fury was also dismissed from his position as director because of his opposition. Now Director Nick Fury is going to stop the launch of the big mushroom. If he succeeds, everything will be fine. If he fails, he won't succeed. Okay, I already know the matter. Please go back. Maypark interrupted Hill, turned around and took off directly into the air with a moon step, flying towards the location of Ganata and others. Only Hill, who looked anxious and puzzled, and the captain and Natasha, who looked gloomy, were left. Natasha and the captain were not fools. On the contrary, they all came from that era, and their sensitivity to crises and conspiracies was definitely far beyond that of ordinary people. From the false picture that the captain saw, the decision made by the parliament, and the dismissal of Nick Fury, all these factors together, it is obviously a conspiracy. Unless the parliament is crazy, the battle is obviously over now. How could they issue an order of destruction? This must be related to the fake picture. Nick Fury took the opportunity to strongly oppose it, which led to the loss of his official hat and also took himself out. Even if something happens at that time, it can't be blamed on him. It's really cruel, it's poisonous, it's calculating. But there is one thing that Natasha and the captain can't figure out. Why did Nick Fury do this? Why destroy everything? You know, there are many pillars of S.H.I.E.L.D. in New York, and the captain and Natasha, as well as the injured Hawkeye and Coulson, and Hill who came to report the news. It is difficult to escape the destruction of the big mushroom. Does Nick Fury really want to put them all to death? What good will this do him? Outside S.H.I.E.L.D., this is the final destruction. The storage place of the big mushroom. A group of S.H.I.E.L.D. members are processing various documents in an orderly manner. Their expressions are full of tension. After all, judging from the pictures sent over, the situation in New York is very not optimistic. Suddenly a bald man hurried in, He shouted loudly, "Nick Fury has been dismissed from his post as director by the Parliament, and all the personnel here will be transferred by me. Now, execute the Parliament's order, launch the destruction plan, target New York Center building, Hero apartment, execute immediately. Big Mushroom is ready to take off." The bald man's words were like thunder, and they stunned everyone in S.H.I.E.L.D. How could the sky of S.H.I.E.L.D. change so suddenly? Nick Fury was dismissed. How is this possible? However, at this moment, a broadcast suddenly sounded, and the faces of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in the secret base were filled with shock and disbelief. "Agent Sitwell, what are you talking about? This is not a place you can command." At this time, an agent loyal to Nick Fury stood up and glared at the bald man, that is, Sitwell, and said, "Whether I am talking nonsense, you will know after reading the document. Now execute the order immediately." Sitwell walked up to the man and slammed the document in his hand on the table. The man picked up the document unconvinced and looked at it, and his whole face changed instantly. He flipped through the document in disbelief. "I wanted to find forged evidence, but I found nothing." After the rest of the people were silent for a few seconds, some of them immediately started to act, especially the first few people who acted. The action was so neat, as if they had practiced it countless times. Seeing someone start to act, the rest of the people naturally followed. After all, people have a herd mentality, even if they are unwilling in their hearts. The decision of the top is not something that these small agents can resist. Soon the plane carrying the big mushrooms was ready. Sitwell saw this scene and showed an imperceptible sneer on his face. If Kinlawo was at the scene, he would probably recognize who this Sitwell was immediately. Isn't it the bald man with glasses who was fooled by the captain and gave the mind gem to the captain with a shout of "Long live Hydra"? And the first to act, the most active ones, were all members of Hydra. The reason why they were so skilled and quick was that they had practiced it countless times in secret. It's not that Hydra didn't think about these two big mushrooms, it just felt that the disadvantages outweighed the advantages, and there was a risk of exposure. So it was not executed in the end. But who would have thought that such a good thing would come to them? Hydra is eager for the world to be in chaos, and this is exactly what they want. Chapter 291: A Fatal Blow. Soul Interweaving Mephisto. Die. The Hell Soul Devouring Cannon in Old Carter's hand gathered together. Bang! As the hell flame burst out, a wave of heavenly flowers came directly in the air. Countless tiny hell flame bombs instantly covered the area where Mephisto was, making it impossible for him to avoid it. Hell Death Light. Seeing that he couldn't dodge, Mephisto simply went head-on, and two black and red lights shot out from his eyes, instantly swept across a field of hellflame bombs. However, at this moment, Johnny suddenly rushed out from behind Mephisto. The streamer star meteorite knife turned into a red light and rushed straight to the back of Mephisto's head. "Ah!" Mephisto screamed, and flames and half of the blade of the streamer star meteorite knife came out from his chest. Under the scorching power of the streamer star meteorite knife's flames, his whole body emitted bursts of black smoke. These are all transformed from Mephisto's soul power. Those soul powers did not dissipate, but instead merged into the flowing star meteor knife as if being pulled by something. How could Kinlawo let go of such soul power as Mephisto easily? He definitely wanted Johnny and Old Carter to avenge him, but he couldn't waste it, right? TVB Novel Network. This is why Kinlawo did not immediately take back the flowing star meteor knife. This knife is absolutely fatal to Mephisto. Chapter 193. He wanted to struggle free from the black spider silk. Unfortunately, no matter how he struggled, he just kept dangling in the air. There was no way to break free at all. He screamed. No one will pay attention to you even if you scream your throat out. Lord God. Venom sneered, and then a smile like a pervert appeared on his face. The next second, the exaggerated fist hit Loki's stomach hard, and it was only a little bit away from little Loki. Ah! Loki immediately let out a shrill scream. Tears and snot all flowed out. Let you run away. Ah! Let you control me. Ah! Let you pretend to be cool. As Venom's punches fell one by one, Loki's screams became weaker. The severe pain made him unable to shout. It must be said, Venom is very talented in this aspect. Although his fists are as scary as meteor hammers, they are actually not that hard, just like those soft hammers. Otherwise, Loki would not only scream, but also vomit blood. There would be deep marks on his stomach, but even if it is soft, it is not so easy to bear. After all, Venom's power is there. The pain of being hit is no less than that of a real meteor hammer. Although Venom said that his screams would not attract anyone, but Thor rushed over immediately after hearing Loki's screams. As a result, as soon as he came in, he saw Venom beating Loki. For a moment, Thor frowned. His brother was beaten, which made him feel uncomfortable, and the desperate Loki also discovered Thor's existence at this moment. He hurriedly shouted, "Thor, Thor, save me, this guy is going to kill me, he is going to kill me." Loki didn't care about his face now, he just wanted to end this pain. His stomach was about to explode. Mr. Venom, no matter what mistakes Loki made, he was captured after all. Don't hurt him anymore. Thor walked to Venom, grabbed his arm, and said with a serious face, "Haha, do you know what he did?" Venom sneered and shook off Thor's arm, pretending to be angry, and said, "This." Thor frowned even tighter. Could it be that Loki did something even more excessive? He was a little unsure. After all, Loki was capable of doing anything. Just now, this guy tried to sneak attack Peter while Peter was sleeping. He wanted to kill him and run away. If I hadn't woken up in time, Peter would be in danger. Do you know if something happened to Peter, Kinlawo and Miss Mai would go crazy? Venom's face was full of anger, and he was talking nonsense seriously. He said it as if it were true. Bullshit, he's talking nonsense. Damn it, Thor, don't listen to his nonsense. I didn't do that. He made all this up. Enough. Thor interrupted Loki with a dark face before he could finish. Thor hit Loki hard with his knee and said, "You are still not honest now. You know, if Kinlawo wants to kill you, even your father can't save you. Take care of yourself." Loki was really aggrieved at this time. He didn't expect that Venom would be so shameless and make up lies to slander him. At this moment, Loki really wanted to die with Venom. "Sorry, Mr. Venom. Excuse me, please continue. Just do whatever you want, as long as you don't kill him." Thor bowed slightly to Venom, then he left the building without any delay. It's not easy to accept a lie. What did Brother Kin say? Oh, right, evildoers will be punished by their own evildoers. In Loki's horrified eyes, Venom laughed, and his fist gradually turned into a whip that spread out. https://w.tvts.net/... In hell, the moment of revenge has officially begun. Old Carter and Johnny joined forces and were frantically attacking Mephisto's soul. Without a body, the soul was left with only half of its strength. In this state, Mephisto could not completely resist the attacks of Johnny and Old Carter, so he could only dodge as much as possible and wait for an opportunity to counterattack. Now Mephisto's heart is full of regret. If he had not only focused on the power of the soul at the beginning, but also paid attention to the strength of the body, maybe he would not be like this now. At least he would not be so afraid of the flames of the two damned evil Ghost Riders. Whether it is the hellfire of the Spirit of Revenge or the nether fire of Old Carter, the damage to the soul is very terrifying, much more terrifying than the body. When Mephisto had the blood pool, he would not care about the destruction of the body. Anyway, as long as the soul is immortal, the worst case scenario is to use the blood pool to reshape it. Anyway, it doesn't take much, but now the blood pool has been robbed by Kinlawo, which directly cuts off his hope of reshaping the body. If he is given another choice, he will directly take the power of the blood pool for himself. If he cultivates his body to the extreme, maybe he can reach the point where he can be reborn with a drop of blood. It's a pity that there are not so many ifs. Now Mephisto can only avoid and find a suitable opportunity. Then give Johnny a one-hit kill. That's right, it's a one-hit kill. When he gave Johnny the power of the Spirit of Vengeance, in order to avoid the situation where Old Carter rebelled again, so he made a little move in the Spirit of Vengeance and left a backhand. As long as Johnny dares to rebel against him, Mephisto will be able to deal with Johnny severely, even let him be doomed. The reason why Mephisto has never used this power, he also has his own concerns. It is true that the Spirit of Vengeance is immortal, but once he detonates the power hidden in the Spirit of Vengeance, it is very likely that the Spirit of Vengeance will enter a dormant state. Even the Spirit of Vengeance is completely out of his control. he can no longer use it. So after learning that Johnny had betrayed him, Mephisto did not rush to destroy him. But Mephisto never expected that things would develop into what they are today. Now Mephisto doesn't care about the spirit of vengeance. He is about to die. Why does he still care about the spirit of vengeance? This is why Mephisto is so confident when facing old Carter and Johnny. Chapter 290. Hill reported the news, and the big mushroom was ready. Hill, why are you here? Natasha saw Hill rushing over, and a puzzled look appeared on her face. You know, generally speaking, Hill's role is equivalent to Nick Fury's assistant. The same is true for Coulson. It's just that Coulson is mostly sent outside to implement Nick Fury's plan. Hill mostly deals with internal problems, so except for the special situation of Thor's hammer last time, Hill rarely appears outside. This is also why Natasha showed such an expression when she saw Hill. Chapter 194. That gloomy face was almost dripping with water. HMPH. The old man in the C position stood up, supported his hands on the table, stared at Nick Fury and said, Nick Fury, the Parliament has revoked your appointment qualifications now. SHIELD will immediately mobilize the big mushroom, carry out a devastating blow to the enemy. The order is issued directly by the Parliament. No one may disobey. After that, the old man in the C position turned off the projection with a cold face. The other old men in the Parliament also turned off the projection, leaving Nick Fury alone in the room. The face that had turned black and red due to anger quickly calmed down. A morbid and conspiratorial smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Everything is under control. Now we just need to wait for the Parliament's order to be issued. Chapter 288. Mushroom Crisis. Venom becomes stronger. Don't blame me for being cruel. It's all because of you uncontrollable guys. Kinluo, I don't believe that two big mushrooms can't weaken your power. Don't worry. This is just the beginning. Definitely not the end. As long as the time comes, you and the people around you, if you can't control it, there is only one way to go. Nick Fury looked at Tony and others who were cleaning the battlefield in the distance, and kept roaring in his heart. His black fists were clenched, and his knuckles were even slightly white because of too much force. It's hard to imagine that Nick Fury would have such a color. From the moment Hawkeye was abolished, Nick Fury had already had a rudimentary plan in his mind, and he was completely determined to perfect it. He wanted those parliamentary termites who could strangle the throat of SHIELD to stand on the opposite side of Kinluo. Use Kinluo to clean up these termites. And the reason why Kinluo could take action was that the big mushroom accidentally injured a few people, even killed a few people in his hero apartment. This alone was enough. Bang! Just as Nick Fury was thinking secretly, the door of the office was suddenly pushed open. Hill walked in with a serious and even terrified face holding a document. Boss, what's going on? This order. Nick Fury's face changed, and he waved his hand helplessly and said, Don't say it. Now I have been dismissed from the position of director. This is the decision made by those worms in the Parliament. Then, what should we do now? Do we really have to execute this order? The captain and Coulson. Hill was a little numb at this time. Her fingers trembled slightly as she clutched the dozen documents. She couldn't say anything in the middle of her words. Once the order is reached, there will be only a handful of people who can survive in New York. Nick Fury let out a long breath, took out a pistol from his waist and loaded it directly. Of course I can't just watch you like this. Now I'm going to stop the big mushroom, and you go find Tony and May Parker. Be sure to tell them about this. If I fail, only Kinluo's group can solve this crisis. After that, Nick Fury rushed out of the office in a hurry, a heroic attitude of never returning. Hill was moved in her heart, but her eyes soon became firm. She threw the information heavily on the ground and ran towards the direction of May Park and others regardless of everything. At this time, May Park and others did not know what happened here. They were cleaning the battlefield quickly. Those who should be saved were saved. Those who should be killed were killed. Everything went very smoothly. Ganata secretly ate a lot of things. For her, both the Chitauri and the Leviathan were a good food, but in order not to attract attention, she did it quietly. It was also a disguised way to reduce a lot of burden for May Park and others. While the battlefield was being cleaned up outside, Spider-Man was in the building, staring at Loki who had been tied up like a dumpling by black spider silk. Venom had lifted the transformation state of the Leviathan and reintegrated into Spider-Man's body. After all, this was Kinlawo's request. They dared not disobey. Venom also ate a lot of Chitauri this time. The previous loss was not only completely replenished, but also strengthened his strength. Compared with his previous self, Venom is now at least 30% stronger. For Venom, such growth is already quite good. And I don't know if the Chitauri have some special properties. Now Venom is much more resistant to high temperatures. At least it can ignore ordinary flames, although it is still unable to resist that special flame. But this is already a great progress. If it goes on like this, Venom will eventually reach a perfect state, no longer afraid of anything. Boy, I think you can put me down. There is no deep hatred between us, right? Loki, the Hanged Man, forced a smile and looked at Spider-Man, and said softly, that posture, there is no longer the previous rebelliousness. It is completely a gentle big brother next door. https://w.v'_s.net/ However, the only answer to him was Spider-Man snoring. After so many battles and the impact on the soul, Spider-Man has long been unable to bear it. So after controlling Loki, Spider-Man fell into a deep sleep. Seeing this, Loki's eyes lit up slightly, and his mind became active. The person guarding him fell asleep. Kinlawo would not be back in a short time, and his stupid brother was still outside cleaning up the Chitauri. If he didn't run now, when would he run? Loki quietly used the power of magic. Soon a magic dagger appeared in his hand. Because he was tied too tightly, so Loki couldn't cut it, he could only rub it a little bit, hoping to cut off these strange silk threads that trapped him. But with Loki's continuous efforts, the silk thread always remained in its original state, and there was not even a trace left, let alone cutting it off. Damn it, what kind of material is this? Loki cursed in a low voice. His face was quite ugly. His magic dagger was sharper than ordinary weapons. Who would have thought that he would be defeated by this unknown silk thread? But for freedom, Loki still endured the burning wrist caused by friction and continued to cut. Try this. Maybe it will work better. While Loki was trying, a mocking voice suddenly sounded in his ears, and at the same time, a black machete more than 1 meter long was handed to him. Stop it. Such a big guy. Loki, who was immersed in cutting, suddenly realized something was wrong as soon as he said it, and he raised his head suddenly. As a result, he saw a big-mouthed monster with fangs, only an inch away from his little Loki, and the black machete was the thigh of this monster. Venom. Your name is Venom, right? Actually, I want. What do you want? You dared to control Venom. Originally, if you didn't make trouble, I wouldn't be able to retaliate against you, but now, Humphrey. Venom's face showed sarcasm and a special and terrifying expression. Chapter 289, The evil will be dealt with by the evil, and there is a backhand. Venom licked his teeth with his long tongue. The fists of both hands doubled in size at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was like 2 hammers. To be precise, it should be a meteor hammer, because there are many prismatic spikes on it. What are you going to do? I'm warning you, don't mess around. I'm the Prince of Asgard. I'll scream. Loki looked at the almost exaggerated fists. He broke out in a cold sweat and his body kept struggling. Chapter 195. The captain shook his head slightly, and his solemn expression explained everything. Natasha's figure swayed slightly. She saw more clearly than many people, and understood what kind of character Nick Fury was. If Hawkeye still had hope of recovery, Nick Fury would definitely help Hawkeye return to the top at all costs. But once there is no chance of recovery, then the only one who will greet Hawkeye is maybe the person who will carry out this mission will be her. Although Hawkeye is already useless, with his combat experience, he is not something that ordinary agents can do. This situation is what Natasha had expected long ago, and it is also the last thing she wants to encounter. For a moment, Natasha's heart was filled with pain. By the way, when I went to find Fury, I found that his surveillance footage was a little strange. It was still the scene when Kinlawo did not appear. He told me that he was analyzing the data of the enemy and Kinlawo and others, but I felt that he was lying to me. What do you think? The captain spoke in a deep voice at this time, with an indescribable awkwardness on his face. He had a hunch that Fury might be bad for them. But this hunch was not quite accurate. Anyway, it made him very uncomfortable. The captain's words temporarily relieved Natasha from the pain. Her already bad look became even worse. She knew very well that S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't need to analyze the data like that. Fury definitely lied to the captain. But what was the purpose of his lie? In fact, Natasha has always been very afraid of Nick Fury. It's not the fear of strength, but the fear of this person's heart. She had to admit that in some ways, Nick Fury was much scarier than anyone else. I don't know what the situation is, but let's be careful. You and I should be careful during this period. Maybe we should get closer to Tony and others now. After Natasha said this with a hint of meaning, she turned and walked towards Tony and others. Natasha didn't know what Nick Fury's abnormal behavior meant, but she knew very well that Kinlaw would definitely take care of his people. If there was any accident, staying with these people would be a wise choice. Seeing this, the captain hesitated for a moment and followed Natasha's steps. In a monitoring room somewhere in S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury looked at the two screens, and a hint of madness flashed in his one eye. He tightly grasped the file bag that was almost unrecognizable in his hand. Chapter 287, Above S.H.I.E.L.D., Everything is under control. Coming to his desk, Nick Fury pulled out the documents in his hand one by one. The first thing that caught his eye was Hawkeye's name. Buzz 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 as the shredder continued to run. Hawkeye's information soon turned into fine paper scraps. Then Nick Fury ignited the paper scraps, and all the information belonging to Hawkeye and S.H.I.E.L.D. was burned. After completing all this, Nick Fury stood up and his cold and indifferent face gradually became normal. Although he was still expressionless, he no longer had that kind of bone-chilling coldness. He tidied up his clothes a little and immediately walked into another room. There was a projection of an old man in the room discussing something. When he saw Nick Fury appear, the voice stopped immediately. These 5 old men are the top existences of S.H.I.E.L.D., members of the parliament. They are all representatives of various countries, similar to the 5 elders in the world of pirates. Several people looked at Nick Fury seriously. Finally, it was the old man number 3 who was sitting in the C position who spoke first. Director Nick Fury, the current situation does not seem to be as optimistic as you described. Although in a short period of time, your Avengers and those extraordinary people can control the invasion of the enemy, but the enemy is always endless, and the final result is probably unacceptable to us. The old man number 3 tapped the screen behind him, and that was exactly what the captain saw. It was also the most difficult moment for them before Kinlaw appeared. Nick Fury looked at the 5 old men expressionlessly, tapping his fingers lightly on the left. No one could see what he was thinking at this time. However, Nick Fury was full of pride at this time. Everything was as he expected, and he had to take this step. Nick Fury did not speak, and the other 5 old men did not discuss anything. They all looked at Nick Fury with grim eyes. There was a cold meaning in their eyes, but relatively speaking, their coldness was still much worse than Nick Fury's, and they were not at the same level at all. If you have anything to say, just say it. Looking at me like this won't solve any problems, Nick Fury said coldly. He knew these people in the parliament too well, just like the farmer knew a link. He knew very well that once some things reached a certain level beyond expectation and understanding, such as the invasion of the Chitauri army this time, the parliament would usually take the simplest and most brutal way to solve the problem. After discussion, we decided to use the final means left by Cat to solve the crisis at this time. It was still the old man in the C position who spoke on behalf of the speech. As soon as he spoke, the other old men nodded one after another. A gleam of light flashed in Nick Fury's eyes. Good guy. As expected, they chose the simplest and most brutal way. Destroy everything. When SHIELD was first established, the founders left 2 large mushrooms with sufficient weight to prepare for emergencies in order to avoid similar situations. The parliament was talking about this big mushroom. The old man in the lead spoke in a deep voice. Everyone, I don't think things have reached that point yet. I believe my Avengers will eventually solve these invaders. Nick Fury pretended to suppress his anger and spoke in a deep voice. I have to say that his acting skills are really good. He looked trembling all over, as if he would faint from anger in the next second. However, the old man in the parliament didn't care about his condition. The old man in the C position crossed his hands, held his chin with the back of his hand, and said coldly, "Director Nick Fury, you must understand that this is not just a matter in New York City now. This will be a crisis that threatens the entire human race and the entire world. We must strangle it in the cradle, and this matter, we have already decided, and now we are just notifying you to execute it. https://www.vts.net/Nick." Fury suddenly jumped up, as if possessed by a crow. He directly flipped the table in front of him away. He pointed at the old man and said angrily, "Do you know what the consequences of doing this are? Such an inhumane thing. I can't do it." "Pay attention to your identity, Director Nick Fury. We have already discussed the consequences very clearly. Compared to the whole world, the sacrifice of a small New York is not unacceptable. They will all be heroes, and those extraordinary people are even more heroes of the world." Nick Fury's eyes were red with bloodshot, staring at the old man in the parliament, and said, "I will never give such an order. No matter what you say, no one has the right to interfere with the decision of SHIELD. This was said when SHIELD was founded." Even you, the old men in the parliament, were not surprised at all by Nick Fury's words. They had long expected Nick Fury to say this. However, for the special status of SHIELD, they had already thought of a strategy. "Director Nick Fury, you are still the director now. But don't forget that we have the power to remove you. Once you show some uncontrollable situation, or even violate the will of other countries, the position of Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. can be replaced." The threat of the old man in the C position was too strong when he said this. Anyone who is not a fool can hear the threat in his words. You old bastards are crazy. You damn guys, worms, ants." Nick Fury pretended to be out of control and cursed, "For these foreigners, such words are already quite vicious." The expressions of the 5 old men in the parliament became gloomy at a speed visible to the naked eye. Each one is uglier than the other. Chapter 196. Now that Kazan suddenly changed like this, there are only 2 possibilities. Either Kinlawo's ghost power has improved again, but if Kinlawo's ghost power is further improved, not only Kazan, but also the breath of other ghosts and gods will change. After all, ghosts and gods are closely related to the Dark Monarch who summoned them. The stronger the Dark Monarch is, the stronger they will be, but now only Kazan has become stronger. Then there is only another possibility, that the curse of Kazan on Kinlawo has become more powerful. As the saying goes, water can carry a boat but can also overturn it. Kazan's curse is a source of pain, but if you can master this power, you can burst out with powerful power while in pain. Berserker is the existence that brings Kazan's curse to the extreme. Kinlawo has the power of a berserker, which Brashu knows very well, otherwise he would not be able to mobilize the sealing power and easily control him. When Kinlawo broke through to the Hellblood Demon God before, Kazan's breath had changed slightly. It's just that the Hellblood Demon God is not good enough for Kazan, so the change of the breakthrough was completely ignored by Kinlawo. But Brashu is always paying attention. After all, the power that seals him is now closely related to Kinlawo. The stronger Kinlawo is, the more powerful the seal will be. This is why Brashu noticed Kazan's change at the first time and showed such an expression. "Brashu, I'm afraid your days will be difficult. That kid is not far from breaking through. It's really unexpected. However, in such a short time, he can reach such a level. It seems that I really underestimated him. Ha ha ha." Perhaps because of his own strength, Kazan was in a good mood at this time, and it was rare for him to say such a long sentence to Brashu. You know, since meeting Brashu in Kinlawo's ghost hand, Kazan has said very few words to him, and basically the words added together are not as many as these words. "Damn you bastard, don't be so proud. You are just eating other people's leftovers. You are still under his control." The exasperated Brashu roared angrily. However, facing Brashu in such a state, Kazan did not get angry but laughed, and waved his hands with ridicule in his red eyes. "Whatever you say, only you know your own suffering. You can slowly snatch these 3 bastards. I am in a good mood. I will give them to you." After that, Carlo turned into a red light with a long sword and axe in his hand and left the place directly, and began to hunt the sinful souls in hell. Kazan's words made many ghosts look unhappy. After all, Kazan's wave was not only aimed at Brashu, but also a wave of map cannon. Ghosts and gods like Carlo Rakshasa no longer had interest in snatching. After all, through the previous few rounds of hospitality, the soul power and dark power of these three demon kings have almost dissipated. Compared with ordinary sinful souls, they are not much stronger. Instead of fighting here and being ridiculed by others, it is better to start hunting freely. Carlo and other ghosts turned into light and disappeared on the spot. Soon, only Brashu and Brad were left on the field. But one was furious, and the other was smiling like a spring breeze. Brashu, why bother to compete with Kazan? We are all ghosts and gods, and we are all dependent on others. Brad looked like a peacemaker and walked towards Brashu. Haha. Brashu suddenly sneered at this time, swallowed all three demon kings into his stomach without any warning, and then sneered, Brashu, remember to hide your damn ghost sword more secretly next time. Brad's face suddenly darkened, and the ghost sword on his waist appeared in his hand at some point, but soon Brad's gloomy face regained his smile, as if nothing had happened. He put the ghost sword back into his waist and said, maybe, you don't have to be so wary of me. We can be friends, right? Make friends with ghosts and gods, or make friends with old ghosts and gods like you? Haha. According to that kid, you'd better go to NMLGB, Brashu said sarcastically, and disappeared from the spot with a shake of his body. Only Brad, whose face was as gloomy as water, was left, looking at Brashu's figure going away. The ghost sword appeared in his hand again, and at the same time, he slashed it fiercely. Suddenly, violent purple sword energy burst out from the long sword. In an instant, a gully of 1,000 meters long and unknown depth was left on the land of this hell. Chapter 286 Brashu's thoughts, true and false pictures. After Brashu taunted Brad, he suddenly felt that the gloom in his heart was much less. He began to think about his own problems. The seal of the Berserker had been destroyed by him for the most part. As a result, the appearance of Kinlawo caused the seal to have a second spring. The seal power was completely restored to its peak state. However, the damaged area was not repaired and was still in a damaged state. However, as Kinlawo's power became stronger, the seal was also affected and began to repair itself. How could Brashu watch the seal repair? So he began to consume the seal quietly in the swamp, because he was afraid of being discovered by Kinlawo. Brashu was very careful every time he lost power, so the loss was very limited. It just barely exceeded the recovery level. But Brashu didn't feel annoyed about it. He was extremely patient in this regard. As long as he could regain his freedom, this bit of boredom would not matter. At most, it would take decades to grind it. A drop of water will surely wear through a stone, and an iron pestle can be ground into a needle. But it's not possible now. Kinlawo is about to break through again, and there will be a qualitative change at that time. Compared with the berserkers who sealed them at the beginning, it is not much different. The seal may be completely repaired directly, or even stronger. After all, Kinlawo has more than just the power of a berserker. By then, let alone decades, he might not be able to regain his freedom even in hundreds of thousands of years. Breaksiu looked at the shocking blood in the distance. An idea inexplicably appeared in his mind. If he could destroy Kinlawo's breakthrough, even cause the backlash of Kazan's curse, then he would be very likely by then he would be able to regain his freedom. Without these damn seals, it would be easy for him to escape from this damn swamp with his power. Even swallow the underworld, swallow the arid continent, swallow everything. The more he thought about it, the brighter Breaksiu's eyes became, and the aura around him became extremely terrifying. As for the fact that ghosts and gods cannot violate the Dark Lord, for Breaksiu, it doesn't matter at all, as long as he arrives at the right time when Kinlawo is weak. Even if he is the Dark Lord, what can he do? Thinking back to the time when the priest Jiger was not tricked by these ghosts and gods, Breaksiu gritted his teeth, and his huge head shook and turned 90 degrees directly, rushing towards the direction of the blood pool in the center of hell. Perhaps because of his agitated mood, the dark purple aura around Brashu became more and more condensed. The whole hell was in a state of change, and dark clouds covered the sky above hell. It was like a storm was coming, and in the gradually condensed black clouds, a blood-red figure flashed by and appeared where Brashu had just stood. Kazan looked at the huge figure of Brashu in the sky. A mocking smile appeared on his face. Brashu, blame that guy for not being Jiger. I don't want his road to end here, and you are destined to be a loser. As soon as the voice fell, Kazan's figure disappeared from the spot, without even leaving a breath. It was as if he had never appeared. Kinluo didn't know what happened to the ghosts and gods at this time. He was still concentrating on condensing the blood around him into blood power. With the continuous accumulation of blood power, it has reached a certain critical point, breaking through the Hell Blood Demon God to reach the realm of Emperor Blood Killing Heaven. Only a thin line is left. Now he only needs to absorb enough blood energy to complete the breakthrough. Earth. The Chitauri are no longer a threat, especially under the powerful attack of the Leviathan version of Venom. Almost one person can sweep away the remaining Chitauri soldiers. Not to mention the help of Hulk Tony and others, the Chitauri soldiers began to decrease at a speed visible to the naked eye. How is it? Is Barton okay? How is the situation? Natasha, who had just dealt with a Chitauri soldier, turned over and landed beautifully, came to the captain and asked, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197. Up to now, Mephisto is really panicking. He is also really scared. It's a pity that it's too late to be scared now. Chapter 284. Word game. Completely losing the body, Mephisto wants to escape, but as the master of hell, he is closely connected to hell. Where can he run to? Once there is a problem in hell, he might die even more miserably at that time. As for asking for help, who can Mephisto ask for help now? Galactus has been driven away, and Dormammu's dark dimension almost collapsed. Who else can he find? The big boss behind him? If Mephisto didn't go to find Galactus, he might be able to ask the big boss for support. But now, if he dares to find it, the first person the big boss will kill is him. Because of the relationship with another big boss, the relationship between this big boss and Galactus is not very good. In short, there are quite a lot of bad things among the five gods. Let me go, Kinluo. I promise that I will never go to the human world again, and all the souls in hell are yours. They will all be yours in the future. I can serve you as my master. https://w.tvts.net/Mephisto wailed in the blood wave. Every time the blood wave hit him, the blood energy around him would dim a little, just in the blink of an eye. About 1/3 of Mephisto's originally blood-red body reappeared transparent color, which was the unique color of the soul. Begging for mercy is too straightforward. Mephisto, do you think there is still room for reasoning between us at this point? Kinluo shook his head and spread his palms, showing a helpless look. Yes, there must be between us. Kinluo, as long as you don't kill me, I can't agree to any request. It will be very troublesome if you kill me. She will definitely appear, as long as I don't die. You are the master of hell. I can help you deceive her. I can. Mephisto almost roared these words, his eyes full of desire for survival. Old Carter and Johnny beside the blood pool clenched their fists when they saw this scene. They were not worried that Kinluo would agree to Mephisto's deal, but the excitement in their hearts was hard to hide. It was really unimaginable that the dignified Mephisto would fall to this point. This was a scene they could not even dream of. Guyi looked indifferent. She had seen through this kind of thing a long time ago. To be honest, this ending was still good for Mephisto. The most tragic ending was something that even Guyi could not bear to look at. Actually, I still like your unearly look at the beginning. Come on, let me see. If you perform well, I can promise you that I will not kill you. Kinluo rolled his eyes and said with a little smirk on his face. However, Mephisto's answer disappointed Kinluo. Mephisto looked at Ancient One, Old Carter and Johnny behind him warily, and then said to Kinluo, I can agree to all your requests, but Kinluo, don't play word games with me. You must guarantee my life. No one can attack me. Really, it's boring. I thought you could be fooled. Forget it. I won't play with you anymore. It's time to get down to business. Kinluo curled his lips and was quite disappointed with the result. But think about it. After all, He can be regarded as the ancestor of deception, especially in the field of word traps. Mephisto is even more slippery. Kinluo's voice fell, and Mephisto's face changed instantly. He didn't care about the surging blood waves around him, and ran towards the edge of the blood pool like crazy. But the next second, he felt a powerful suction coming from behind him. He was so familiar with this suction. Kinluo had used this trick on him more than once, if I remember correctly. This trick is called the soul-destroying hand. Mephisto's fear was completely transformed into anger at this moment. "Damn it, you can't catch me," Mephisto roared, and a surging blood mist burst out from his body. It looked like a blood-colored firework, extremely colorful. The blood mist replaced Mephisto and condensed in Kinluo's hand, forming a huge blood ball. The next second, the whole person seemed to have teleported and instantly appeared at the edge of the blood pool. However, the blood energy around him dropped a lot, which was visible to the naked eye. Only the head was still blood red, and the whole body had completely turned into a transparent color. Kinluo smiled and shook his head. After integrating the blood ball into his body, his figure flashed and appeared behind Mephisto. His palm accurately grabbed his blood-red head, which was the weakened version of the soul-destroying hand, the soul-eating hand. There was no way, in Mephisto's current state, he might not be able to withstand the power of the soul-destroying hand. If they were not careful, Old Carter and Johnny would not even have the chance to take revenge. "Thank you for giving Mephisto. Someone will take you on your way." Kinluo finished speaking, grabbed Mephisto and flashed in front of Johnny and Old Carter again. "It's up to you to decide what to do next. Don't bother me," Kinluo said as the soul-destroying hand directly absorbed all the blood and energy from Mephisto's head. So far, Mephisto has completely turned into a soul state. Unless he enters the blood pool again, he will never be able to condense his body again. Kinluo threw Mephisto out with a flick of his hand. He also winked at Guyi. He signaled her to look after Johnny and Old Carter. Although Old Carter and Johnny are in the best condition at this time, Mephisto only has 50% of his soul power left, and his body is destroyed. But no one dares to guarantee that Mephisto will have any backup. Kinluo doesn't want any accidents to happen and let Mephisto run away again. Guyi understood Kinluo's meaning in an instant and nodded without leaving a trace. Then he mobilized the surrounding space power to seal off the space of tens of thousands of meters, unless there is a being far stronger than the Ancient One, breaking through the space to save Mephisto. Otherwise, with the little power of Mephisto, it is impossible to break through the space barrier of the Ancient One. "Mephisto, Mephisto." Old Carter trembled and kept roaring Mephisto's name, and he couldn't even say a complete sentence. The dark flames all over his body kept flashing, and it looked like it would explode at any time. Johnny's state was a little stronger than Old Carter, but not much stronger. The flames all over his body surged violently. I don't know if it was because of Kinluo's fluctuating fire. The color of Johnny's flames became more vivid at this time. "Carter, Johnny, you two betrayers. Betrayers, come and kill me if you have the ability." Mephisto looked at the two people, and there was no fear when facing Kinluo, but instead a feeling of wanting to punch hard. Chapter 285 Kazan's Changes. Yin Coin Ghost. Kinluo glanced at the situation behind him. With a mocking smile on his face, he shook his head and jumped into the center of the blood pool. In the sticky blood, Kinluo kept sinking. The blood here is extremely pure. There is nothing else except blood and a little bit of hell. Soon Kinluo sank to the bottom. Kinluo stood at the bottom of the lake, and the blood power in his body began to run wildly. The blood around him merged into his body at a very fast speed and transformed into blood power. As the blood power became thicker, the ghost hand seemed to come alive. The color became extremely bright, and the tendons kept wriggling, as if it was some kind of insect, which looked quite scary. At the same time, Kazan, who was fighting for who would devour the three demon kings in the end, suddenly shook all over. The originally scarlet eyes flashed with incredible and surprised colors. The rock-like muscles all over his body jumped at this moment. If Kinluo saw the abnormality of Carlo's muscles at this time, he would be surprised to find it. The frequency of the muscles on Kazan's body and his ghost hand's movement is exactly the same. without the slightest deviation. https://w.v''s.net/ At the same time, a red breath emerged from Kazan's body, and his figure gradually began to solidify. Damn it, how could Kazan? Could it be? Brash looked at Kazan's appearance, his huge face full of surprise, and then he suddenly remembered something, and the surprise on his face turned into horror. The source of the ghost hand is Kazan's curse. And the reason why the berserker can master the power of blood is also due to this curse. Brash has always been very unhappy with Kazan because he was sealed by the berserker. From a certain perspective, Kazan can definitely be regarded as the source of Brash's sealing. After all, without Kazan's curse, there would be no Berserker series. Chapter 198. The result did not disappoint Kinluo. The fluctuating fire really revived Johnny with full blood. How do you feel? Are you two feeling uncomfortable? Kinluo looked at the two and asked. Old Carter and Johnny shook their heads almost at the same time. Then Johnny stretched out his hand, and the Hell Chain and the Flowing Star Meteorite Knife fell into his hands. TVB Novel Network. Brother Kin, return the property to its original owner, Johnny said and handed the Flowing Star Meteorite Knife to Kinluo. However, Kinluo did not take it, but pushed it back and said, "The design is very beautiful, don't give it back to me first. The matter is not over yet. You will still need it later." Hearing this, Johnny did not understand what Kinluo meant, and a look of doubt flashed in his eyes. On the contrary, when old Carter heard this, a gleam of brilliance flashed in his eyes. The body trembled involuntarily. Chapter 283 Hellblood Pool. Blood-chi explosion. Some hatreds, if you don't deal with them yourself, how can you really avenge your great hatred? Kinluo looked at the blood-red cloud in the center of hell and muttered to himself. As soon as these words came out, old Carter and Johnny were all upset. The flames on their bodies swayed wildly, as if they would explode at any time. Revenge on Mephisto. This was something they didn't dare to dream of, and Kinluo helped them realize their dreams step by step. But let's make a deal first. You can do whatever you want with your soul, but Mephisto's blood is mine. Kinluo looked at the two of them and said jokingly, "Don't worry, Brother Kin, we know what's right and wrong. If you don't say anything, we will never do it," Johnny hurriedly assured and said. Old Carter just nodded tremblingly and didn't say much. Johnny and Mephisto can be regarded as the hatred of killing his father and the hatred of taking his wife away reluctantly. Although the hatred for him is great, it is far from the level of old Carter. You have to know that the reason why old Carter has been alone for so many years, accompanied by the cemetery, and even has no friends, it's all thanks to Mephisto. This hatred has fermented for 100 years and has reached a certain level. If old Carter is not the Ghost Rider, it would be in some world of horror resurrection. It is estimated that the one who just died must be a red-clothed level existence. Don't worry, I won't keep you waiting for long. I'll be quick. Mephisto should be almost there now. Kinluo glanced at the increasingly bright blood cloud, then turned his gaze to Ancient One and said, "Master Ancient One, thank you for your help. Don't you also master the power of space?" This time, Ancient One did not act immediately, but looked at Kinluo in confusion and asked. In a way, the power of space that Kinluo mastered is simpler and more convenient than her portal, but except for very few cases, Kinluo has never used that power of space at all. Could it be that Kinluo can't master that power? But it can't be. Ancient One, due to her understanding of the power of space, can be sure that Kinluo has mastered this power skillfully, and it will not consume too much of herself. Master Ancient One, you need travel expenses to watch a movie, right? Such a big melon. Please help me. I'm just lazy. Long live understanding. Kinluo smiled and shrugged his shoulders and said, https://www.vts.net/ There is a free labor force that is not used, and you have to use the power of fluctuations to sense and teleport yourself. Isn't that stupid? Hearing Kinluo's words so confidently, Guyi's mouth twitched for a while, and he resisted the urge to hit someone. He turned his wrist and the space portal appeared in front of him. What about them? Johnny pointed to the 8 ghosts who were still tyrannizing the 3 demon kings and asked. It's okay, don't worry about them, let them play slowly, and I will naturally be able to take them back when the time comes. Everyone follow up. Kinluo said and stepped into the portal. Old Carter couldn't wait to get revenge at this time, so there was basically nothing in his eyes except Kinluo, and he followed Kinluo into the portal. Johnny looked at the three demon kings with pity and shook his head. In comparison, the demon kings who died before were too happy. After passing through the portal, everyone came to a lake formed by blood. The lake was so endless that bubbles would occasionally appear from the scarlet blood. The air was filled with thick red blood mist, and the smell of bloody metal was everywhere, making people feel extremely uncomfortable. The land near the blood pool was made up of piles of bones. I don't know how many years these bones have existed, but they look brand new like white jade. Some bones have even turned red under the infection of the blood mist. It looks a bit like the description of the Lion Country in the original Journey to the West. Of course, it's not that exaggerated. After all, that's the real sea of blood and corpses. But the scene in front of them is spectacular enough for Kinluo and others. This is the core power of hell, the blood pool. Ordinary people can't survive here at all. Those with slightly weaker strength probably won't last long. But the few people present didn't have so many concerns, and they could completely ignore the life-threatening blood mist around them. Under the scorching flames of Old Carter and Johnny, the blood mist would make a hissing sound from time to time. Kinluo was completely excited at this time, for the power of blood and chi. The blood and chi here were simply too delicious. Kinluo even began to absorb the blood and chi of the surrounding air involuntarily. While absorbing the blood and chi, Kinluo couldn't help but sigh again. Mephisto, good man. Since coming to this world, Mephisto is definitely the person who has helped him the most besides the system, except for the power of the Sword Soul system, which doesn't play a big role. The rest are really given whatever you want. Kinluo can grow so fast. Mephisto is definitely indispensable. Suddenly, a huge vortex appeared in the center of the blood pool. The surrounding blood and chi seemed to be attracted and began to gather towards the center of the vortex. It was also at this moment that the flames around Johnny and Old Carter became turbulent. Because they were all in the blood mist, they felt the power of Mephisto. Kinluo saw this and a red light flashed in his eyes. Then the whole person instantly appeared on the blood-colored vortex. Now Mephisto obviously wants to use the power of the blood pool to help himself condense his body again. To be precise, it is the last step to condense the body. The previous preparations Mephisto had completed at the moment of his will returning. The blood cloud gathered in the sky is enough to explain everything. However, with Kinluo here, Mephisto is destined to be unable to completely condense his body. Are you kidding? Now the entire blood pool has been regarded as a forbidden delicacy by Kinluo. How can Mephisto consume the power here? Blood. Explode. Kinluo's blood power burst out. The entire blood pool was boiling. The violent blood power was like a raging wave, constantly impacting the condensed vortex. One wave is higher than another. Under the impact of the terrifying blood power, the vortex gradually spread. Blood bursts and attacks the surrounding enemies, and the shock wave generated during the explosion has a strong impact on the enemy. Then a blood-red figure appeared in the middle of the blood pool. Who else could it be but Mephisto? At this time, Mephisto's will has returned. Now after seeing Kinluo and others, there was a flash of fear in his eyes. Chapter 199. Seeing that Ancient One really had no intention of attacking, the three demon kings breathed a sigh of relief almost at the same time. Human, what are you doing? Are you looking for souls in hell? Lucifer set his eyes on Kinluo, and his tone returned to that of a demon king. However, Kinluo ignored him. Instead, he walked straight to Old Carter and Johnny. Looking at their miserable appearance, he clenched his fists and couldn't help shaking his head. Are you stupid? If you can't beat them, just run away. Why suffer this? I didn't expect those bastards in hell to improve their strength so quickly. I miscalculated. Old Carter looked at Kinluo and wanted to force a smile, but was blocked by the long sword. Kinluo sighed slightly, waved his hand, and the long swords inserted into Johnny and Old Carter were all out of their bodies. Those long swords were transformed by Lucifer's power. He has absolute control over these long swords. Seeing his masterpiece destroyed, Lucifer subconsciously wanted to stop it, but found that his power was completely out of his control. Lucifer's face suddenly changed. Realizing that something was wrong, He couldn't help but think of what old Carter said before, and when Ancient One and the human appeared. Ancient One seemed to be half a body behind the human. It's terrifying to think about it. Lucifer stared at Kinlawo and said, "Human, who are you? What's your purpose in coming to hell?" "I originally just wanted to come to hell to have a good meal. I didn't want to make things too difficult for you bastards. I just wanted to die, but now I've changed my mind. I will treat you three, including your master Mephisto, well, and let you know what real hell is," Kinlawo said, and a ball of dark flames emerged from his hand. The dark flames Kinlawo used were much purer than old Carter's, especially after breaking through to the Dark Lord. The purity of the dark flames rose to another level. The dark flames merged into old Carter's body. At the same time, Kinlawo's other hand condensed a pure wave fire and merged into Johnny's body. In an instant, Johnny and old Carter were like adding fuel to the fire, and the flames around them shot up into the sky. Instantly, they were revived with full blood. Chapter 282 The Eighth Ghost God, treat Lucifer well. Just as the voice rang out, greedy Demon King Mammon and angry Demon King had already rushed out. It must be said that the reaction of these two Demon Kings was really fast. In fact, it is normal to think about it. After all, no one is a fool, and they saw Kinlawo release such a terrifying underworld flame with their own eyes. Naturally, they can think of who the underworld flame on old Carter came from. Originally, they were wondering why two Ghost Riders appeared at the same time. As mentioned before, the birth of a new generation of Ghost Riders represents the decline of the old generation of Ghost Riders. There is only one spirit of vengeance, and it is destined that there will only be one Ghost Rider. Perhaps the old generation of Ghost Riders can linger for a while, but it is destined not to be too long. However, old Carter not only did not die, but also mastered a new kind of hellfire, which can transform into a Ghost Rider for a long time to fight, even more powerful than before. Now the case has finally been solved, but this kind of ending was something they had never thought of. Lucifer and the other two Demon Kings had guessed countless possibilities in their minds, but there was nothing like what was happening before their eyes. Such a powerful hellfire was actually created by a human, and judging from the power of the hellfire the human mastered, it had even surpassed their boss, Mephisto. Even though they couldn't believe it, the facts were right in front of them, and they couldn't help but believe it. The power of old Carter alone had already frightened them, and even the power of the two Demon Kings couldn't do anything to him. It took the three Demon Kings to barely control him. Now that the person who gave old Carter power has appeared, what are these three half-crippled people waiting for? Are they going to have a feast? Kinlawo glanced at the three scattered figures, and the sneer on his mouth became even stronger. Run? Can they run? As Kinlawo's mind moved, the 8 ghosts and gods suddenly rushed out of the ghost hands. Compared with the previous summons, this summoning was particularly enjoyable. Moreover, these ghosts and gods are affected by the hell environment and Kinlawo's own Dark Monarch. Their figures are much more solid. Although the traces of phantoms can still be seen, at first glance, it seems that ghosts and gods have really descended to the world. Kinlawo looked at the 8th ghost god he had recently mastered, the Ghost Brad. It was different from the unruly ghost god he imagined. The Ghost Brad had a gentle smile on his face, a sword on his waist, and was wearing quite old clothes, with a bandage wrapped around his neck. He exuded a purple aura all over his body. If you don't count the terrifying purple aura emanating from his body, Brad's appearance is quite similar to the dragon-slaying warrior in the country of Wano in a certain anime. Although this 8th ghost god looks gentle and elegant, but Kinlawo knows too much about the virtues of ghosts and gods. He is definitely not as simple as he seems on the surface. He is probably a smiling tiger character. Such an existence is actually very troublesome, but Kinlawo is not in the mood to care about Brad's virtues now. He just wants to entertain these 3 damn demon kings. One request: treat the 3 of them well, don't let them disappear easily. After the matter is done, the sinful undead in this interface will be your food. Kinlawo exudes a unique aura of the Dark Lord, and directly issues orders to the 8 ghosts and gods. At this moment, compared to Mephisto, Kinlawo seems to be the real master of hell. Faced with the request of the Dark Lord, the 8 ghosts and gods can't resist at all. What's more, this matter is completely a welfare, and they don't have to resist. The eyes of the 8 ghosts and gods all lit up, and then turned into 8 black shadows and scattered. The 3 demon kings just ran out of a range of less than 1,000 meters, and before they could start the space power transmission, they were directly caught in the palm of the hand of the 8 ghosts and gods. It looked like an adult catching a chick. Now the ghosts and gods are no longer the same as before. If they meet that guy Doraemon again, there is no need for all 7 ghosts and gods to go out. Only 3 or 4 ghosts can devour his dark dimension cleanly. Bang, bang, bang. There were 3 loud noises in succession, and all 3 demon kings were thrown not far from Kinluo. Lucifer and the others were almost desperate now. The breath of just one ghost god made them feel afraid and even gave birth to the feeling of worshipping. Now there are 8 such beings. Kazan took the lead, and with his sword and axe, he directly removed the hands and feet of the 3 demon kings. And even Lucifer's wings were not spared. After being cut off by Kazan, he took a bite of it like a chicken wing. The next scene was wonderful. The 8 ghost gods took turns to fight. Those demon kings didn't even have the chance to scream, because Kajia's shadow had been entangled with them. Seal their 9 orifices. Frozen, disease, curse. All kinds of unique powers were added to them. Let them understand at this time what it means to be unable to live or die. Kinluo glanced at the miserable state of the 3 demon kings and nodded with satisfaction. Turning to look at the 2 people who were resurrected with full blood, the satisfaction on his face became even stronger, especially for Johnny's help. It was no surprise that he could help old Carter. After all, he had no shortage of hellfire, so he could take as much as he wanted. At most, he could get some from Carlo. What really satisfied Kinluo was the fluctuating fire. Fluctuating fire, to put it simply, was a flame condensed by using the power of fluctuations to gather the power of fire attributes. Even Kinluo was not sure whether this pure flame could help Johnny, or replenish the energy of the spirit of vengeance in his body. Kinluo only vaguely remembered that the spirit of vengeance in the original plot seemed to have the ability to devour flames. Chapter 200. This image is too inconsistent with the majesty of their father in their impression. Thor and Loki seriously suspected that this mental memory was a trick Kinluo had on them, but they were not ignorant people, not to mention Loki, the mage. Even Thor knew that there was nothing wrong with this mental memory picture. It really existed. What's more, there was no need for Kinluo to lie to them. Did he just want to be their uncle? Damn it, how could this happen? How could this happen? Compared to Thor, Loki couldn't keep calm at this time. He roared madly, and suddenly a fierce light flashed in his eyes. Then the mind gem scepter in his hand turned over, and he stabbed Kinluo directly with his backhand. I will kill. Loki hadn't finished his cruel words when he found that the mind scepter in his hand appeared in Kinluo's hand. Look at this kid, why are you so polite? He's just giving me a gift. Forget it, I'll accept it this time, but I won't do it again next time. Kinluo pretended to blame him, but his hands were not idle at all. He directly put the mind gem scepter into the inventory. Loki watched the mind gem scepter disappear in front of him, and Kinluo's slightly mocking eyes. He was completely broken, closed his eyes, tilted his head and fainted. The process was neat and tidy. It can be called smooth and flowing. Asshole, you're still here. Seeing Loki like this, Thor was immediately furious. It happened that because of Odin's matter, he was also very upset. Okay, this guy is really fainted this time. So childish. Come on, keep an eye on your brother, but don't leave the Earth for the time being. You can follow Spider-Man and the others to the hero apartment first, and you can also pick up Jane Ford's. Kinluo said, regardless of whether Thor agreed or not, and directly pushed Loki into his arms. Taking Loki, Thor nodded at Kinluo without any hesitation. Not to mention that Kinluo spoke about this matter. Even if Kinluo didn't speak, Thor also wanted to find an opportunity to get close to Kinluo and change his future. Peter, I still have things to deal with here. Loki will be handed over to you for the time being. Others may not be able to keep an eye on him. When the time comes, you and Venom will take turns. Before I come back, the exercises are gone. When Spider-Man heard Kinluo's words, especially the last sentence, his eyes were as bright as a light bulb. Yes, I promise to complete the task. The whole person's spirit and spirit are different, Thor looked at Spider-Man in surprise, not understanding why this guy suddenly became like the rising sun. What is that exercise that can make him change so much? We will see you later. After saying that, Kinlowo's figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. The next second, he appeared beside Ancient One. The others have started fighting again, but this time, it was a completely one-sided situation. There was no endless supply of troops. The Chitauri can't stir up any waves at all. In addition, there are now Spider-Man, Maypark, Ganata and other beings who are more powerful than the original 6. It's not an exaggeration to say that they are bullying. Master Ancient One, we should go and solve the following things, but the premise is that you can't interfere before death appears. Kinlowo said seriously, don't worry, I won't stop you from plundering Mephisto's power. Ancient One smiled and nodded, then seemed to remember something and said, by the way, there is a blood pool in hell. It is the essence of hell's power. When Mephisto's body is destroyed, it will be recast there. Blood pool? Kinlowo's eyes suddenly lit up like a light bulb. Mephisto's body alone gathers so much blood and energy. What about the blood pool that can help him recast his body? Oh my, this is going to happen. Kinlowo couldn't sit still anymore. He crushed the will of Mephisto in his hand and said, no time to lose. Master Ancient One, let's go now. TVB Novel Network. Ancient One nodded, then turned his wrist, and the space portal appeared in front of him. The terrible scenery of hell appeared in front of him. But what's worse is that the picture Kinlowo saw made Kinlowo's originally fiery eyes cold in an instant. Chapter 281 Torture, Full Blood Resurrection in Hell. Old Carter and Johnny both fell to the ground in a weird posture. The flames all over their bodies were almost extinguished, and thick black smoke came out. Only sparks flashed from time to time in their eyes, proving that they were still alive. I really hate the existence of Ghost Rider more and more. The angry devil looked at Old Carter and Johnny, and spit out a mouthful of blood foam fiercely. What's there to hate? They don't die, but it doesn't mean they won't hurt. Don't you understand? Angry. Sometimes living is far more terrifying than death. Lucifer sneered and said. At the same time, the long sword in his hand was thrust forward, piercing through the chests of Old Carter and Johnny at the same time. I want this knife. The greedy Demon King Mammon picked up the flowing star meteor knife, feeling the power contained in it, his eyes full of greed. HMPH. It took the death of 5 Demon Kings to get the spoils, and you want it? Why? The angry Demon King snorted coldly, staring at Mammon fiercely and said. At this time, Mammon really wanted to call Mephisto his father, but he was afraid that the angry Demon King would directly attack him without martial ethics. You know, the angry Demon King in hell is equivalent to a decisive wave of his heart, but in the end, he didn't say it, just smiled embarrassedly. If you want it, then give it to you. What's there to fight for? When Lord Mephisto comes back, do you think you will have a chance? Lucifer's voice fell, and then another sword stabbed out. It pierced Johnny and Old Carter from the side. In less than a short while, Johnny and Old Carter had almost no place for the sword to fall on their bodies. Hee. Cough. Lucifer, do you think Mephisto can come back? Hell is about to be destroyed, and you can't run away. Old Carter said weakly. Because his head had been pierced by a long sword, his voice sounded a little strange. It was like the sound coming from a harmonica. Just you want to destroy hell? Lucifer grabbed Old Carter's head, and the scars on his face looked particularly hideous under the pull of his muscles. We are just paving the way. The real strong ones are coming soon. Are you ready? Old Carter barely raised his head, and the friction between his bones and the sword made a harsh sound. Carter, don't forget that this is hell. Lord Mephisto can't come back? Strong? Ridiculous. As ridiculous as the legend of warriors among humans. Are you trying to please me? Lucifer's face was full of pride, and he didn't care about what Old Carter said. The reason why he was so confident was because he felt the breath of Mephisto at this moment. Mephisto had returned to hell. As long as Mephisto was in hell, what was wrong with the gods? Planet Devourer, at %. How ridiculous do you think it is? When Lucifer was about to continue to act cool, a cold voice interrupted him. The 3 Demon Kings turned around at the same time. As a result, they saw a human male and a boiled egg. a white bald head. Especially when they saw the white bald head, the pupils of the three demon kings couldn't help but shrink, and they all took a half step back. 2. The Supreme Mage. The angry demon king was no longer angry at this moment, and Lucifer was no longer pretending to be cool. As for the greedy demon king, there was only one thought in his mind: fuck. Why is she here again? It's no wonder they reacted like this. Thinking back to that time, 7 people surrounded and beat one person, and they almost crippled him. Now there are only 3 of them left, and most of their strength has been consumed. How can they face the Ancient One? Master Ancient One, it seems that you have left a deep impression on them. Kinlawo saw the reactions of the demon kings, and couldn't help but feel a little curious in his heart. What kind of experience could leave such a psychological shadow on these demon kings of hell? It was just a simple exchange of hands. Ancient One's expression was calm, as if he was talking about something insignificant. Supreme Sorcerer, what are you doing here? Lucifer gritted his teeth and looked at Ancient One and asked. Don't worry, I'm just here as a spectator this time. He's here to do something in hell, Ancient One said as he floated in the air and sat cross-legged, looking like a spectator. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.